Holy crap.
People persist in doubting the evidence.
Don't run and hide. Don't be afraid. Don't turn away any longer. The truth will set you free.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
We're turning all of our antennas towards Jimmy Church on Dark Matter Radio.
And now, your host, the captain of conspiracy, the prince of paranormal. This ain't your daddy's radio network show. This is Jimmy Church, Fade to Black.
Oh, are we on? Oh, Fade to Black. Tweeting during the intro is not a good thing. All right, Fade to Black on a Monday. How you doing? How's everybody? Crazy day today. We'll get to all of that. All right, Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Today's Monday, July 28th, 209 days into the new year. We are live from the JP Motorsports Studios right here in sunny, burning, the pit of hell, Burbank, California. For KJCR and the Dark Matter Radio Network, I'm your host, Jimmy Church. How you doing? Let's get this one cracking. It's going to be a fun show today. And, you know, once in a while, it's good to just, like, relax and bring on an American icon like Dr. Franklin Ruehl. And we'll just be able to just relax and let him take over, because that's what it's going to be. I can't wait. So that'll be a little bit later at the bottom of the hour. Let's get this one cracking. Big salute to the proud men and women in uniform all around the world, fighting the good fight for us. Without them, there is no me, there is no you, there is no us. And you could not hear me right now. Think about it. I want to say hi to a friend of mine, Bill Journey. Bill is a voiceover guy, and big-time voiceover guy. He's the guy that, you know, at the end of those movie trailers, and she's back. He's one of those guys. Stopped by the studio today and brought me a gift. So, Bill, thank you for that. I hope you're listening right now. You said you would be. But thank you, Bill. Stops by. All right. Wow. What a day today. I started off this morning, went over and did John B. Wells's show this morning at bright and early 9 a.m., which means, you know, up at 7. You got to be fresh and, you know, you got to take a breath mint and clean the stuff out of your eyes and get ready to go when you're on with John B. But so I did that today, and we'll talk about that later. Yes, there were a lot of requests. When can we hear the show and so forth? Talk to John about that, and he's going to send over a portion of the show, and we'll get that posted up. And, you know, he's got a different structure over there than what we do here. But we'll get some of the audio up. All right, I promise you. Hopefully, it'll be some of the better parts. What it was basically was part 2 of our show when he was on as a guest last week. I'm serious. It was just a continuation. It was like we just picked up where we left off, and it was fun. It was good, and he is a class act, and that show is class. And it was really cool. It's just John and Jimmy today, mano a mano, and it was a lot of fun. So, again, thank you, John. Again, it was indeed an honor. Thank you for that. Our dead guy birthday today is Jacqueline Kennedy Onassis. Jackie O. Born today in 1929, died in 1994. Can't say anything. I'm just going to stop right there. Jackie O is a piece of America that We just leave alone. That's what we do with Jackie O. Just leave it alone. No jokes. There's nothing funny. There's nothing serious. It is just something that we just leave alone. And so there you go. But born in 1929, died in 1994. I did read Onassis, his biography. And in that, of course, part of his book was about, his childhood and how he grew up in Greece. But the parts about Jackie O, it's just an amazing read. And I just have to say, again, I'm just going to leave it go. Jackie O, born in 1929, died in 1994. All right. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube. Follow us on Twitter right now. What you want to do, Walanda, we swapped our crew with our listeners. Okay. I'm reading Twitter. Twitter is at JChurchRadio. You want to hashtag DM RadioNet. Go hang out with everybody. We're friendly. We're nice. Go hang out. At JChurchRadio is what you want to do there. Facebook and YouTube. Everything is what it needs to be. If you're over at Dark Matter Radio right now and you're on the Fade to Black page, just scroll up and click on everything. Follow, like, subscribe. Later tonight, we will have open lines. Dr. Ruehl said, hey, man, let's take some calls. And I said, absolutely. So we will be taking calls tonight with Dr. Ruehl. And if you've ever had some kind of question, something on the back of your mind, listen to the show tonight, get a vibe, and then call in. He knows the answer. I have here in Los Angeles, Dr. Ruehl is somebody that's been around for a long time. And Jimmy Kimmel and other things, Sci-Fi Channel. But it's an addiction. It's a bona fide addiction. He's got probably, I don't know where he finds the time to do all of his production because it's crazy. But over on his YouTube channel, he's probably got 1,000 videos. Oh, I'm exaggerating, 990. But go and just, all you got to do is click one at a time. Just watch. And it's nothing but education, higher learning. Dr. Ruehl is a piece of America. And I just can't wait to the bottom of the hour when we get him on the show. All right. So we will have open lines. And I want to get a few things out of the way with Dr. Ruehl. But I have no problems opening up the lines and letting you guys take over the show because that is, I'll just kick back and listen. He is the man. You can email throughout the show. You know what to do. Jimmy at jimmychurchradio.com. Go over to the website if you want, jimmychurchradio.com. Use the contact page and send in an email. If you got any questions for Dr. Ruehl, there are a few that are lined up already, and we'll get to all of those. All right? Again, I want to say one thing for everybody that will be listening in the future on YouTube to this program. This is a live radio show. So when you listen to this on YouTube, that's what you're listening to. You're listening to a recording of a live show. This isn't some slickly produced podcast or whatever. This is a live radio show. That's what you're listening to. All right? I don't know how podcasts are put together or what people expect. But they see the guest name, and I guess they think they're just going to click, and it's going to go into some crazy production with a guest. I don't know, because I don't listen to that stuff. It's a radio show, all right? This is live. So what you ought to do right now for the people that will be listening in the future, time travel, to this on YouTube, is why don't you call into the show now, next. How you doing? It's cool to be here. Now, this is our first Monday show. And I was looking over at the Dark Matter schedule. Yeah, it's pretty intimidating. There it is, Fade to Black 5 days a week. So we'll be running Monday through Thursday live. Friday will be an encore show. And I'm sure that will be Keith's choosing what to do. He may ask me, but he knows better than I. But so Monday through Thursday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday will be your normal fade to black that we know and love. And then Thursday, call-in show. There you go. Call-in show all night long, week recap, and maybe go over some news and do that kind of stuff. Had a lot of fun doing the call-in show last week or the week before, and so I'm looking forward to it. So that's the new schedule. There you go. And no time off now. No time off. I have, what I was talking to John about this morning, John B. Wells, and I have a lawn. I have to take care of. Yellow spots, things that have to be done, plants, things like that. There's the back patio. There's the garage that has to be cleaned up. There are things in my life, cars to be washed, shopping to be done. There is no time for anything. So I hope you guys are happy. Are you happy? I didn't have time before. Now, I hope everybody is happy. What I need now is volunteers to come over and help me with yard work and clean the garage and wash the cars, the dogs, everything. It's all put on hold now. I love it. I wouldn't have it any other way. All right, so Contact in the Desert, by the way, that's all wrapped up. Looking forward to it. I will say this. We have reached out, and we have got a pretty cool crew set up that will be going out there. We have all of the contest winners, too, as well. We will make our presence known. It is going to be a lot of fun. So, yes, we have some Fadernauts going. We have our crew here that is going. I'm totally excited about it. It is going to be great, and it's going to be, are you ready? Next week. Next week. And I was just talking about the new schedule. So next week, there's no Friday Encore. Friday, we're live. So next week, we go Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then a Thursday night show. Then we pack up and roll out of here at like 6 a.m., make the 5-hour, 6-hour drive, whatever it is, to 5-hour drive out to Joshua Tree, turn around, get in there, set up, make sure a full broadcast facility is up and running, and then go live on the air 7 o'clock that night. And I'm sure I will be torn up. Man. So that's next week. And it's, wow. Just, it's such an honor. And it is, and everybody is going to be there. So there you go. I'm totally fired up about that. All right. So let's take our first break. And tonight, Dr. Franklin Ruehl. Tomorrow, in the house, Dr. Barry Taff. Wednesday night is Richard Dolan night, right here on Fade to Black. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio. Hashtag DMRadioNet. I just read that, David Curry. I'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black, bespoke radio for the masses, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. It's the Monday edition. I'll be back right after this. Stay with us, everybody. Don't touch that mouse.
You're listening to Jimmy Church Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
What's up, revolutionaries? It's me, Jimmy Church. Do you have an IRS or state tax issue? Well, I did, and I called national tax experts. My problems were fixed, done, fini, and man, I got to tell you, it was a relief. National Tax Experts are a recognized tax office that services clients in all 50 states. It doesn't matter where you live. Give them a call. I'm telling you, they take the time to understand each and every client's individual financial status as well as their financial goals. And that's exactly what you need, my brother, when you're taking on the evil 3-letter. So, seriously, give them a call today at 1-877-909-5444. Again, 1-877-909-5444. Or go check out their website, www.nattaxexperts.com. That's NATTAXEXPERTS.com. Tell them Jimmy sent you.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, Fade to Black, the Monday edition, the new schedule. Bespoke radio for the masses. Follow us on Twitter right now, at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. That's what you want to do. Shoot me an email to Jimmy at JimmyChurchRadio.com. Also go over to the contact page, get past the producers here, make it good, and get it into me. All right, I'm checking out Twitter real quick. Yes, Space Boy's going to be there. I think Lou's going to hang out. We're going to make Lou work. Space Boy, too. I'm going to make Space Boy bring a guitar, sit over in the corner behind the studio and play Space Oddity for the breaks. Yeah, it's going to be pretty cool. Rick's and everybody's going to be there. You need to come out and hang out. All right. Let's see. Where was I? Maureen Ellsbury. How did you find out about that, Dave? Is she going to be on the show? Actually, she wrote me today. She's busy. That was her answer. I'm busy. I don't know. She's scared. She can't be scared. She did a TV show. She's on Open Minds all the time. Why would she be nervous? I don't know. Maureen, everybody can find time to come on the show. I would love to have Maureen on the show. The invitation has been sent, and she says she's busy over the next couple of weeks. She can't make it to Contact in the Desert either, so maybe she really is busy. I don't know. But Maureen, we'd love to have you on the show. I want to say special thanks to the guys over at the Sony store at the Americana over here in Glendale. We had to go in and get ready for next week at Contact in the Desert, which means things like all of our video cameras. We got big, honking, extended life batteries and the biggest memory cards we could get and everything else for all of the cameras here. And amongst other things. But we had to get suited up. We had to get ready because it's about going there and capturing the moment. It's going to be really, 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 really cool. So we made sure that we were covered. But again, the guys over at the Sony store were really, really helpful and gave us a nice discount. So thank you guys for doing that for us. All right. I'm specifically talking about John, and you know who you are, and Ruehl and Maria. Thank you. You guys were awesome. So we are completely geared up and ready to go. I wanted to make sure that we have so many, logistically, we have so many bases to cover in such a short time from our arrival point to getting on the show and everything else. And I just want the whole moment captured. I think it's going to be funny because something's going to go wrong. I guarantee it. All right. I was on John B. Wells' show this morning, Caravan to Midnight. And one of the things that we talked about today was MH370 and MH17 and Jim Stone. Now, Jim Stone's website is jimstonefreelance.com. He has presented some pretty interesting things, but for me specifically, it's just one. Now, going back and looking at all of the original, the most popular conspiracy theories about MH370, I have them here. Let me bang them out real quick. Number one, the plane was accidentally shot down during a military operation. How do you like that? Okay? This is not 17. This is 370. Okay? Number 1, plane was accidentally shot down during a military operation. Number 2, plane landed at Diego Garcia. Number 3, was hijacked and flown to Afghanistan, where the crew and passengers are now being held captive. Number 4, alien abduction. Number 5, suicide. Number 6, fire set by passengers or terrorists. Number 7, secret weapon test or drone. Number 8, the Asian Bermuda Triangle. Number 9, the Illuminati are using it to start World War III. And number 10, black hole time travel experiment. Now, out of everything that I just read, these were the most popular conspiracy theories. Now, remember, what was put out by the government is the plane just, governments and media, was the plane went down somewhere in the ocean and we can't find it. That was the official story, still is. Now, after everything that has gone down in the last 7 or 8 days, now you hear these conspiracy theories, and 2, 3, 4 of them are true, or appear to be. Oh, I got to be responsible. I have to be responsible with what I say. Think about that. As outrageous and as outlandish as all of this sounded 4 or 5 months ago, look at where we are today. Plane was actually shot down during a military operation. Number 1. How outrageous is that? How crazy? How can we say that? That's exactly what happened. Well, not exactly, because it may not have been accidental. It was certainly a military operation. We don't know who did it, and it might not be either, but that's what the media wants us to believe. I'm just saying that's number 1. Number 9, the Illuminati are using it to start World War III. How outrageous of a theory is that? Well, you know what? Where we're sitting today, it doesn't sound so outrageous. It sounds like that's exactly what's going on. Number 7, a secret weapon test or drone. Possible. Absolutely. That's where we are today. It's such an insane story. Now, throw all of that into the kettle. Stir the pot. Go over to Jim Stone's website. Jim has published some photographs of the of MH370, the original plane, and 17, the original plane, as they are sitting on the tarmac as a whole. Okay, as a whole. Before their crashes, before their disappearances. And on both planes, on all Malaysian airline planes, is a Malaysian flag. It's backwards. And it's painted on both sides of the fuselage. And the flag, and go with me on this, and stay with me. The flag on 370 is painted in a certain spot right behind the cockpit, like in the first class section, above some windows. And it aligns in a certain way. On 17, the same flag is there, but it's in a slightly different spot. It's about 2 feet, maybe a foot and a half, 2 feet in a different position. Okay? You follow me? Now, on 17, MH17, the flag covers 2.5 windows, 2.5 windows above. And on 370, in the original photographs, the flag lines up with just 1 window. Just 1. In front of the flag is a blank window, a window that's covered up. It's white. You know how they do that on planes. On 17, that's on 370. And so on 370, the forward window is open. It's still black. But what is in the photographs in the wreckage in the Ukraine, it shows the flag covering, lining up with just one window. Now, I don't know. I don't. Could it have been repainted for some reason? It's a brand new 777. Why would the plane be repainted? I don't know. How could the flag move by itself? I don't know. All I know is what's in these photographs, it clearly shows something is going on. Jim Stone says in his article, I'm not going to go on and quote, I'm just going to paraphrase here, but he says that as he's been scouring the internet and looking for pictures of 370 and 17, original and postmortem, that the pictures on the internet are slowly being changed. He's got the original photographs. And he says that even on his own website, the pictures are being pulled down and reposted. The black window, and I'm looking at it here, you can totally see that window has been photoshopped in. You can see it. It's not even a good Photoshop job, but they've added it. And it's a trippy thing to look at. And when you go and look at the original plane sitting on the tarmac, and then you look at the debris field, and you look at this flag that is painted on the side of the plane, like I said, right in the first class section, the forward, what would that be? Aft, the forward section of the airplane. It's clearly the wrong plane. So what went down in the Ukraine? I don't know. I don't. But with everything that has gone on, with all of the original conspiracy theories about MH370, and Malaysian Airlines apparently had 12 777s. Now 2 of them have fallen out of the sky. And what are the odds? That's the first thing. Second, you go and you look at this, and all of the craziness about this plane being flown to Diego Garcia. They're going to use it for something else. Trust me on this. And the rumors, they were everywhere. I had so much email about it. That now this pops up, and it makes you scratch your head. And so John B. and I today talking about this, and I said, well, John, what do you think? Where did he said, Jimmy, you got to stop and think. Yeah, it's possible. When I go back and I look at a few things throughout history, and look at the Lusitania, World War I. Look at that. Look at the issues that were there with Pearl Harbor, that possibly we even knew about that ahead of time, and we allowed it to happen. Gulf of Tonkin, Vietnam War, lied to about that. Colin Powell in front of the United Nations Security Council waving around that vile, oh, this is going on, weapons of mass destruction. We've got to go into Iraq. We've got to. Waving around those letters that turned out to be prose written by the CIA. Now, big conspiracy theorist, am I? These are just historical facts. Historical facts. We didn't need to go into Iraq, but that's not what this show is about. What this show is about is conspiracy at times. And now I'm looking at this with MH370 and 17, and I feel weird. I feel strange. And you know what? So should you. And as I said to John B. today, I will say it to you now. Don't believe anything that I say. Don't believe anything that the media has to say. Don't do it. But listen to us. Listen to it all. And then go and find out for yourself. That's what I'm doing. I'm not believing anything anymore. I never really did anyway. Oh, man. I remember somebody said to me as I was growing up, a mentor of mine when I was about 15 years old. This was a total adult. Well, I thought so at the time, probably 30 years old. Signed my yearbook for me. And and his name is Steve. And he wrote, Jimmy, as you go through life, always remember one thing. Nothing ever is as it seems. And with that, I'm going to take a break. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Bespoke radio for the masses. Follow us on Twitter at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. Shoot me an email to Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. I'll be back right after this with Dr. Franklin Ruehl.
Way out here, we listen to Jimmy Church on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Dark Matter.
Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. Dark Matter.
You're listening to Fade to Black
on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
¿Qué tal, mis amigos? Yo soy Mario Carson, el tiburón, y los invito para que escuchen a mi buen amigo Jimmy Church Radio. ¡Claro que sí!
Oi, oi, I'm Reese Evans. You're listening to Jimmy Church. This is Revolution. The revolution will not be televised. The revolution is on radio. Ciao.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. This is Bespoke Radio for the masses. Wow, love this new schedule. Follow us on Twitter right now at JChurchRadio, hashtag DMRadioNet. And I just read, where'd that go? Rick Sinnott just tweeted. He says, my mentor said, never buy cheap bread, cheese, or motherboards. But bump. Well done. Okay. All right. You know what? Let's get this cracking. Let's go. Shoot me an email right now if you have anything for Dr. Ruehl, please. Email Jimmy@JimmyChurchRadio.com. We will be taking calls shortly. And also, if you have anything else and you want to tweet it in, I will do my best to get to it. All right. Other than that, let's get this one cracking. And I've just got to say, Dr. Franklin Ruehl, an American institution, somebody that we should treasure. Franklin Ruehl is an American ufologist and cryptozoologist. He holds a Ph.D. in theoretical nuclear physics from UCLA. He has appeared on such shows as Jimmy Kimmel Live, The Roseanne Show, Tom Green Live, among others. Ruehl's own show, Mysteries from Beyond, The Other Dominion, started on public access television, cable TV in the Los Angeles area in the late 80s. Then the Sci-Fi Channel in the early 90s. In 2006, he hosted several new episodes of the show on TomGreen.com. Ruehl was rejected on America's Got Talent audition with an act that encompassed sticking straws into a potato. In 2010, he appeared on several episodes of 1,000 Ways to Die as an expert portraying a cryptozoologist, a conspiracy expert, and a deathologist. His show, Professor Weird, debuted at 9 p.m. on August 18th, 2012 on the Science Channel. I would like to welcome to the program a true American institution, Dr. Franklin Ruehl. Dr. Ruehl, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am. A high pleasure, a high honor to be on your show.
No, the honor is all here. And Doctor, before we move forward, one of the bright spots in Los Angeles in the 80s was community television and all of the stuff that was going on the local cable networks. And you had most of Los Angeles. And it's just, and I know if you go back and you remember the things that were going on, I'm trying to remember What was that? The guy with the gray hair that had the show that was kind of like Howard Stern. I'll remember his name in a minute. But it was that kind of stuff that was going on the local channels that was endearing here in Los Angeles, and you were a big part of that. I just want to say before we move forward, I don't want to sound too much like a fanboy, but thank you for all of that.
Well, it was a great pleasure to be on. I taped 351 episodes of public access TV. But at the end of 2009, due to budgetary considerations, all 12 studios in L.A. County were shut down. And this was at a time when we had 3-camera studios set up, green screen, roll-ins. It was very sophisticated and well done. But since then, I've spliced my shows up and posted them on YouTube. I have 900-plus postings on YouTube if anyone wants to check them out.
The collection is extraordinary, and I was talking about it before the show. It's extraordinary, and what everybody should do is just start at video 1 on your YouTube channel and just spend the next couple of months watching every single one. Just go down the line. All subjects are there. And like I said, it's like higher learning, and it's very cool. So thank you for all of that.
And just to clarify, to be honest, with regard to my show, Professor Weird, the pilot was aired on Discovery Science, then put on hold indefinitely. I'm still waiting to hear back.
Okay.
So it's only one episode that aired, unfortunately.
Hey, Dr. Ruehl, are you speaking close to the phone? You're a little.
So. Can you hear me?
Yeah, you're a little distorted. That's all.
Oh.
Okay. Not a big deal. We can hear you just fine.
Okay, I'll speak louder.
Okay. Well,
I'll start off with a trivia question, which I like to do on my own show.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, I'm going to extricate it here from its paper prison, an envelope. The question, in the 1950 sci-fi classic Rocket Ship XM, what did the letter M stand for? Multiple choice, inverse alphabetical order. Was that the Moon, Metaluna, Mercury, or Mars? And the only prize, one pat on the back you'll have to administer to yourself, which is a heck of a lot better than a slap on the belly with a wet trout.
All right, did everybody get that? What was the M for in
Rocket Ship XM?
Rocket Ship XM. I can't even believe you brought that up. I actually watched that last week.
Really?
I absolutely did. One of the things I love to do, and this is
Where did you see that?
I saw it on YouTube.
Oh, YouTube.
Yeah, if you go to YouTube and you just search classic 50s sci-fi, boom, they all pop up. And I go through. I watch them all the time. Rocket Ship XM is not only classic, but it's a perfect example of what was going on in the 50s. I actually watched that last week. And I think I watched it twice, and one didn't have good audio, and I watched the whole thing and then I watched another version of it, and the audio was perfect, and the film itself was crisp and clear. It was a good transfer. But I actually watched that last week.
That's a coincidence. It happens to be my personal favorite sci-fi film.
It's mine. Well, from the 50s, I'm going with Forbidden Planet.
Okay, it's one of my favorites also, but Rocket Ship XM for me is at number 1.
Well, what about 20 Million Miles to Earth?
That's another good one.
Yeah,
Hopper.
Yeah, amazing movie. And of course, what about
Destination Moon?
Destination Moon. How about First Man in Space?
First Man in Space, excellent also.
Marshall.
Yeah, well, he wasn't the one. It was his brother who came back. And that, of course, is something I've said, that he was infected by a zero entity and turned into a human-alien hybrid. And I like that concept.
I'm looking at the notes here. I'm trying to adjust here. I'm just trying to adjust.
Okay. By the way, your answer, since you watched that movie, you probably know, but let's hear it from you, Jimmy. Rocket Ship XM.
Yeah, I'm going. I've got to go Mars.
Okay, that's wrong.
What?
It's Rocket Ship XM Expedition Moon. And as you recall, they were headed for the moon, mysteriously got stopped, and then suddenly were thwarted directly to Mars, where they found that mankind's fate was in danger.
It's such an amazing movie.
Yes.
Such an amazing movie. All right. Okay. Now I'm going to start off with this. There's so many things that we can talk about. Hold on. I'm making some adjustments here on my audio. Okay. There we go. Is this. I got a letter from Renee in Tucson, and the letter says this, and I think she might have pulled this directly off of your blog. Okay, which is this. If pigeon poop is destroying the world's bridges, what can science do about it?
That's a very good question, because that's what I wrote. That's a study showing that the pigeon poop is causing bridges to deteriorate. They like to land on bridges. So I guess one possibility would be to, just as we do with some of the airports, get falcons or other birds of prey to drive them off. It's not going to be easy, though, because they have to be there constantly. And, of course, the number of pigeons is enormous.
What about some type of, those things that I see on top of buildings and stuff? Why don't they use that? The spikes.
I think that pigeons can land on the spikes without hurting themselves. They're very agile.
Oh.
It's difficult to get rid of them. So we're stuck with that pigeon poop.
Okay.
Unless we could maybe spray some sort of protective gel on bridges that would protect them from the pigeon poop.
What about what is in the pigeon poop that is destroying the bridges?
I think there's some acidic qualities that are eating away at the bridges.
And what about buildings like downtown L.A. and New York? Are buildings affected in the same way that the bridges are?
Well, this study analyzed bridges because the pigeons love to hover and settle on them. But that's a good question. I wondered about that, too, that anywhere they're pooping, they could be destroying cement, concrete, metal, etc.
Now, you and I were talking earlier this week, and one of the things that and I don't know where it might have been a video, might have been a blog of yours, but it freaked me out. And it was the key that sank the Titanic.
Oh, yes.
Can you tell, for everybody, you and I talked about it, but can you share that story with us?
Yes, it's a very interesting idea. Of course, we know that back on April 14th, 1912, the Titanic sank. Overall, approximately 1,500 passengers died, and the question is what caused it. Of course, it smashed into an iceberg. And a new theory is that it was due to a key to a cabinet that contained the binoculars. A man, David Blair, who was the second mate, was angry because he had been, his schedule had been changed. Instead of going on this famous trip on the Titanic, on the unsinkable Titanic, he was transferred to another ship, and this really angered him. So we don't know if deliberately or just inadvertently he took the key to that cabinet with him. Now, when there is a hearing regarding what occurred, one man, Freddie Flagg, one of the mates, said that if the lookout had a pair of binoculars, he would have seen the iceberg and they could have avoided hitting it. It was all due to not having binoculars. Now, there are a couple of questions I ask. Did anyone else aboard a ship like that, such as the captain or their first mate or whoever, would not have also had a pair of binoculars? Or if they just had that single pair of binoculars, could they use some implement such as a crowbar to force open the cabinet to use them? I mean, this is very important for the lookout to have binoculars, not just use his own two eyes. So we don't know if Blair, deliberately or inadvertently took that key. He did send his sister a postcard saying how he was so disappointed at not being allowed to take that trip. Of course, after what happened, he might have been glad that he wasn't aboard. But the key question is, did he feel any responsibility, any guilt for the Titanic sinking? So that's, of course, the question. A few years ago, his binoculars and his key and the postcard were put up for auction. So one possibility, of course, others, that shoddy material was used in the construction of the Titanic, despite the fact that it was supposed to be unsinkable, and that's why the sides ruptured so easily when they hit the iceberg. And yet another theory is that a German U-boat, as early as 1912, had actually fired a shot at the Titanic, causing it to sink. So, there's many interesting ideas here, but the pair of binoculars could have led to 1,500 deaths.
How could there not be binoculars available on the Titanic? Of all of the, the simplest of the simple, I mean, is this, I have to ask, is this true? I'm not taking you to task here.
Yeah, I understand.
I'm just saying, how is that possible? What about a spare pair of binoculars,
Of course, and as I said, certainly the captain should have had his own pair.
Right.
And realizing that the lookout didn't have binoculars, why didn't they use them? But we know the Titanic sank, and this one fellow, Freddie Flagg, at the hearing in Washington after the disaster, said if the lookout had the binoculars, we would not have had that disaster.
Unbelievable.
And I should point out, of course, there are many, at the time, precognitive visions of the Titanic sinking. Of course, that would have been stimulated by the idea that it was billed as being unsinkable. So we imagine what would happen what could cause it to sink. And I ran on my show an episode from One Step Beyond where Barbara Lawrence, the actress, was playing someone who had a psychic vision of the Titanic sinking, done exceptionally well.
With all...
You remember One Step Beyond, by the way?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
With all of the knowledge that you put out there, we're going to move on very quickly, but I have to ask this.
Yeah.
Because you cover everything from dinosaurs and the history of the Earth to UFOs.
My primary interest is UFOs and ETs, but I'm interested in these other subjects, and I always felt with my TV show to have a variety of segments so that we draw in a wider audience. Maybe not everyone wants to hear about UFOs or ghosts, but so I try to bring in as many different subjects as possible in a half-hour scenario.
It is kind of like this show, actually. But where do you, and I mean that, where do you get the ideas for each show?
Well, doing research, of course. Before we had the internet, when I started, I was just going through magazines and newspapers and other publications. Then, of course, with the internet now, there's such a wealth of material. I could have a daily show with great material.
We should have...
Let me come back on TV. By the way, I was going to mention, I forgot to say, when you're introducing me, I was also a consultant online, on-air consultant on the History Channel on 3 of their segments for Ancient Aliens, and also on the True TV's Jesse Ventura's Conspiracy Show.
You should, I'll talk to you off the air, but I should have you on, just come on like once a week and do a 5-minute burst of Dr. Ruehl. Would just be absolutely amazing. It would be great. And, let's change gears just a little bit. I was watching a bunch of, again, I just go back and I click and I just watch Dr. Ruehl all the time. And I went back and I watched the original Ruehl Life Exists video. Does it exist and what is it? Now, and I'll say this in advance for everybody. Ruehl life is life that exists theoretically in zero temperature and zero atmosphere. And you refer to them as living UFOs. And I thought it was one of the best. All of your stuff is good, but that was one of the episodes that stuck out for me. So can you describe what that type of life is and how that could possibly tie into what we see today as far as UFO spacecraft goes?
Well, I've hypothesized that with the formation of the universe and over time, we have all these various elements in outer space, that life could have evolved in space as opposed to on the surface or in the atmosphere of a planet. And that over time, this could evolve intelligence, mobility, and, of course, just as with other forms of life on planets, they could range from the minuscule to the macroscopic. And thus you could have entities that would be enormous in size and possibly have even volitional movement and could even travel through space and possibly be seen in our skies as what we call UFOs, or unidentified flying objects. Now, I'm not certain this is true. I'm saying this is a possibility that we have to keep our minds open to everything. And once NASA's flight, the long-endurance space flight, came back, when it was brought back, there was some material on one of the outer surfaces, and I speculate that this could have been zoroidal life that exists in free space. Now, we could prove this if we could send more expeditions out there, but I think it is a possibility. Now, whether they're actually entering our atmosphere to the size of UFOs described, I think it's a possibility. That's why I call them living UFOs.
You've also described them as being serpentine, oval shaped.
Right, they could have any shape we can conceive of.
And so when not only the Russians, but ourselves and our own astronauts have described all of these, and so could that be we're going to get into other ET hypothesis in just a second, but could that be theoretically a majority of what we are seeing all the time?
I don't know about a majority, but I think some UFOs could be living entities. Can't prove it, but I think it's a possibility.
Okay. Now, with ET in general, and I know, I know more about you than the audience probably does. So let's back up. Is ET from our own solar system? Does it possibly outside of our solar system, another universe, or a parallel universe? Let's just start there.
All of those are possibilities. First, it's my contention that the universe is literally teeming with life, Jimmy. That life is the common denominator, the cosmic backdrop, that we truly live in the inhabited universe. Two pieces of evidence. The age of the universe, 13.7 billion years. Ample time for advanced entities to evolve and even develop a spacefaring capability and journey to other worlds from beyond their own. Then we have, of course, the size of the universe. At least 100 billion galaxies, like our Milky Way, each with perhaps 400 billion stars, each star perhaps orbited by 10 planets. So we're talking about 400 billion trillion possibilities. And on those planets, we could have life evolving. I believe life can exist in every environment, because on Earth we have life existing in anywhere from the coldest to the hottest regions. Even in nuclear power plants, we've discovered bacteria that just can live on electrons, so that on Earth, and we've only discovered about 10% when you consider the ocean still contains millions of species. Let me say this. The estimate now is that we have 1.5 million species of life on Earth that we know today, but that the total number may be 8.5 billion. It's a rough figure, primarily in the oceans, and we have exotic life forms of all type. You know, we take for granted, say, the porcupine with its 30,000 spines and the octopus with its 8 tentacles. Those are very unusual creatures, but we're very used to them. The ocean is filled with many extraordinary, unusual creatures, and the same should apply to every single planet. Now, not every planet is going to have entities that have reached intelligence and developed a spacefaring capability, but certainly it's possible on other planets in our solar system. Then we go beyond. And then you mentioned, are there parallel universes out there? Certainly a possibility. New theory just was advanced that our Milky Way galaxy, our universe, our island universe, is just one bubble universe among others. I think, first of all, our current universe is not alone. There are others, big bangs that have occurred. The space is infinite. That's one possibility. Then we have the possibility of parallel universes in other dimensional zones. And then this idea of the bubble universes. So it would be extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, if our planet's the only inhabited one. It seems absolutely absurd to say that. And certainly when we talk about time, 13.7 billion years, look what's happened on planet Earth. If you would teleport a 1914 New Yorker to 2014, you would definitely suffer a severe case of future shock. And, of course, just seeing everyone running around with cell phones would be one. Now, we're talking about what a society could create 100 or 1,000 or 10,000 years more advanced than we are. Anything and everything is possible in terms of time travel, in terms of exceeding the speed of light, in terms of teleportation. In fact, I say that anything we can conceive of in terms of science fiction may become true. Today's science fiction often becomes tomorrow's science fact. No, we can't exceed the speed of light today. We think it's impossible. But I point out that our universe actually violates the basic principles of science. Because when the Big Bang occurred, there are two hypotheses, that there's just perhaps 1 in every 30 billion particles was matter, one particle of matter exceeding the total number of antiparticles. So if they collided and exterminated themselves, we still have one. The other idea is that antimatter and matter, which should have been equal, that the antimatter has a slightly lower half-life, and that's why our universe evolved with matter as opposed to antimatter. But that's a violation because matter and antimatter should be identical, except for the charges. So this itself is a violation. I argue that there are other charge particle violations, parity violations, all these ideas that even a particle with low energy can go through a pressure zone. The idea is that, and Einstein said this too, he was upset by quantum physics. He said God doesn't play dice with the universe, and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle upset him. But the fact is that we live in this uncertain universe. I believe that the speed of light can be exceeded, and that all of these questionable sci-fi tactics, such as teleportation, are possible. Nothing is without a possibility.
Why? What happened with science in general? Why did they stop thinking like you? In other words, and I'm looking at there's a tweet that just came in as I was asking this question, and it's virtually the same thing, but this comes in from Rick, and he says, "Do you think that scientists have forgotten how to break the rules or kick outside the box and think outside the box?" And that's exactly what happened to science. It was so, the thought of just exploring and going beyond what we know in the 30s, 40s, and 50s and going into the 60s was chance takers. And they all thought like you do today. What happened? Why did they stop?
I don't know, but I keep saying that. When I've lectured before various aerospace science firms, I have individuals come up to me and, for example, say they believe in UFOs or they actually sighted a UFO. When I give them my official form, they invariably never return it. I think they're afraid they might jeopardize their position. I think many are just afraid to come out and speak their minds that they do believe in some of these exotic ideas.
Yeah. Well, and we're talking about, faster than the speed of light theories like that, or attempting to bend space, or however taking advantage of gravity. There's got to be some type of way to travel here that obviously that we don't know about and we can't really conceive or think about because it's an advanced civilization. But we don't even theorize about that anymore. We don't even talk about it. You do, but it's not even fantasized about, and I just don't understand why.
Well, it seems to me, at least recently, we've seen a few more scientists, certainly astronomers, acknowledging that there may be other life. And I think that's the first key. I was going to point out something that's really irked me, and that was our Apollo space program. The Russians really got us into it with Yuri Gagarin, the first man in space, and, of course, we had Wernher von Braun and his team, and we stopped at Apollo 17. Why? Because the Russians dropped back in their space program. Actually, their Russian, their equivalent of Wernher von Braun died at a suspiciously young age of 51. And I've always thought that he may have fallen into political disfavor, because with his death, their space program collapsed and they were no longer offering a challenge. So the very program that got kick-started ours, so we could keep up, caused ours to stop because Apollos 18, 19, and 20 were canceled. And they would have included, among other things, exploration of lunar caves where I thought we might find, at the very least, microscopic life and possibly even something more advanced. But suddenly we stopped and reverted. We went back to creating the space station. Well, originally in sci-fi, the idea was that we'd create space stations as the first step to going to the moon and then Mars. But we showed you didn't need the space station. You go directly to the moon from there. And von Braun had plans as early as 1981 to send 2 missions to Mars. But they were canceled because the Russians were no longer offering us a challenge. And we retrogressed. And that's been extremely disappointing to me. Now we're talking about going back to the moon in maybe 2020 or when. But we had the capability to have, at the very least, an active lunar and active Martian base going now, with trips going even beyond that. So it's very frustrating because we had that technology. We had the ability to do it, and we'd let it slip.
With the cancellation of the programs, there was also the rumor going out there that we couldn't go back for 2 different things. Maybe we found something on the moon that said, hey, you don't belong here. There's that, an ET presence.
Right.
And also that that we were technically we couldn't go back. Radiation and technology and other things. Do you think either of those played into it as well?
I think it's more politics and the fact that the Russians no longer offered a challenge. As far as radiation, we can protect ourselves from that. Unless there was an actual ET warning, which is very intriguing. I would find that very fascinating if that was the reason our space program died at that point. However, I don't think that was the case.
Have you ever seen a UFO yourself?
Yes, at one time. And this was, I was taping a segment of Weird TV with a producer. We were walking out. I looked up in the sky, and this is out in West Hills, California, and saw a diamond-shaped UFO with 4 multicolored lights. And I said, Todd, look at that. And by the time he looked up, it already zoomed by. And, of course, I didn't have my camera ready. I didn't have my camcorder, so I didn't have any proof of it. That was the only time, unfortunately, I've seen a UFO. It's conceivable it could have been a plane, but I was out at LAX studying landings and takeoffs, looking at the planes to see how they compared to the lights I saw, and I didn't see anything that really matched. But I'm not ready to say 100% it was a UFO, but it was a possible UFO, but that's the only time. I always said if a UFO landed, I'd run up to greet them, but we don't know what you do in reality. When it comes time to actually greet the ETs or run away, I might be the first to run off. I don't know how you're going to react.
What is the best example when we always talk about the evidence? What is the best example of evidence for the ET presence here? Would you present?
Well, I'd like to always point out, as far as UFOs go, the Thomas Mantell case from 1948. That was January 7th, a Wednesday. And that was down in Kentucky at the Godman Field. You're familiar with the Thomas Mantell case?
First pilot to die
Right.
pursuing a UFO.
Right.
Absolutely.
And again, this had so many qualities. First, apparently every officer from the lowest to highest ranking at Godman Field spotted the object. We had civilians seeing it, highway patrolmen seeing it. Then these 4 planes came in from Marietta, Georgia for refueling in Louisville. 2 of the pilots did not have fuel. They had to land. 1 did not see it, but Mantell saw it, pursued it. He said it appears to be a metallic in structure. I'm going in for a closer look. 5 minutes later, he was shot down, and that was the end of that case. And that, again, the first man to die pursuing a UFO. Now, the government originally said that was due to a weather balloon, but they changed it and said this was actually due to Venus at half its maximum brightness being seen that day and mistaken for a UFO. Well, this is one of those cases we can actually check on. We could check the next time that Venus is half its maximum brightness in that area, send up a pilot, actually a couple of pilots, there were 1 pilot and a co-pilot, and film it, see if people on the ground see it, see if there's any way that Venus would be mistaken for a UFO described by Mantell and others, because I think that's hogwash. But it can be checked out. And also, he started to lose oxygen. Now, but they said he lost oxygen, that's why he crashed. But his communications were always straightforward. He didn't say, I'm going in closer. There's no hesitation. His conversation was intact, and I was told by experts that he would have had oxygen, so that it wasn't a matter of oxygen failure that caused his plane to crash. But again, we can check this case out to an extent, and again, considering he's the first man to die pursuing a UFO, it deserves further investigation.
Well, the other things for me that were presented, all of the witness testimony on that, everybody said that it was metallic, repeated, and then I believe it was a couple of years later when it was opened back up, the government then wanted to say that it was, actually they said the weather balloon first, which is what they always say, but or at least back then, and then they switched and said that it was Venus. And I would think that Mantell, being an experienced pilot, could not or would not ever mistake Venus for and describe it as being metallic.
Yeah, absolutely. He was a veteran of over 100 flights during World War II.
Right.
So that's a point I've made, yeah.
Yeah, has Venus ever looked metallic to you? You know, we see Venus all the time. I've never seen it look metallic.
So this is one of those cases we can check. Another one I'd like to point out, the famous Phoenix lights of a couple of years ago. They said they were dropping flares. The Air Force was testing how flares would look dropping. Okay, tell us the next time you're going to drop flares, and we'll get our cameras ready and see if they could be mistaken for UFOs, if they would match the UFO footage that was taken back in Arizona, I think, 1997. And this is something that can be checked out. Or if not, then let's send up our own plane, drop flares, and find out if they're going to resemble UFOs as described by the residents at that time. Again, I think it's just another phony excuse by the government.
A couple of questions have come in on Twitter, and one of them is, this is from Eugene, how can we protect ourselves from the Van Allen belt?
I think that we actually have the technology to do that.
Well,
it could be that we could use certain chemicals and spray, and suffuse the Van Allen belt with other particles that could reduce the radiation. Is he talking about that for spaceships that go through it?
Yeah, and the whole Apollo hoax, theorists that are out there, that the Van Allen belt, well, you hear two arguments. One, that the radiation isn't that severe and we would pass through it quickly and we would not be affected by the radiation. That's how we went to the moon to begin with. There's that side. Then there's the other side that says that the radiation is totally severe, and which is why we haven't gone back to the moon, and that's why we always stay, with the space shuttle and the space station, everything is inside of the Van Allen belt. So how is it technology, would the spaceships just be too heavy, 2 feet of lead kind of situation with our aircraft or our spacecraft going out? Or is there a simple way to protect us from that radiation? And how severe is it to begin with?
Those are good questions. I have to admit that I'm not certain just how severe that radiation is for astronauts. Rather than protecting the ship, it seems to me they just could use ultra-heavy spacesuits for the astronauts as they're going through it, so that the weight would only be minimally increased. Because I know I've heard that said, if you put, have 10 feet of metal or lead shielding encompassing the entire spacecraft, that's going to cause a fuel problem. But the fact is that our astronauts haven't been dying off as a result of going to the moon and passing through it. So I don't feel that's a major problem.
I'm getting two different comments coming in on Twitter, and I think it also ties in with one of your articles, which was Mark Twain's Deadly Prophetic Dream. And I'm getting comments on Twitter about this too as well. Tell us about that.
Mark Twain did write about his dream was regarding his brother. who was also on the steamship, and he had a dream that he died, and that the woman came in, I believe, with everyone else brought red roses, and one woman brought in a white rose. Then, tragically, his brother did die in a steamboat accident, and just as he had seen it in his dream, because his brother was very popular with the local women, one did, I think it was one of the last women to come into the mortuary where he was laid out, and did place a bouquet of white roses, or at least one rose. And this prophetic dream, seemed to be came true exactly down to the last detail. As far as I know, that was the only time he ever mentioned having a prophetic dream or any ability to foresee the future. But it was an interesting prophetic dream of his.
Is that why don't prophecies come true? Prophets are everywhere. Why don't they? Certainly this with Mark Twain is one example, but of something coming true. But why don't prophecies come true? Can we not see the future?
Well, I'm not sure we can see the future. However, I'm open to the idea of telepathy, and this could be that someone has read someone else's mind, where they're planning to do something, such as, let's say, assassinate a president, and they have a prophecy about that, which could come true. But I do believe that telepathy is a genuine phenomenon, and therefore that would be the key to foreseeing the future, by reading someone else's mind and finding out what they're planning to do. As far as foreseeing the future in general, I'm open to that, but we just don't have that proof. But it's a possibility also, because we do have some prophets who have been accurate.
And I have another. This is. Can we talk about Tesla for a second?
Sure.
Why is there a body of Tesla notes out there that we don't know about? Have you found anything? And the only reason why I ask, Tesla is something that we all respect, look up to, and we also wonder, because we don't know a whole lot. If you go and try to find things out about Tesla and his research, you just can't find it. And how close was he to the mark? And have you been able to find some secret information out there?
Not secret information, but there certainly is a brilliant man, and I know that he had apparently at least developed the plans for a death ray that would protect the country. He said he could set up these death rays so that no foreign invaders could come in. His death ray would both shoot down planes and also soldiers. But he was asking too much for it, and thus he didn't develop it, or didn't get the funding for it, so he didn't develop it. But I think that probably one of the most brilliant scientists around. But they say that he was living in a hotel in New York and spent his time feeding the pigeons on the street. So he didn't, his enormous intelligence was wasted to a degree, because he could have done so much more, not just in terms of death rays, I think, but in others. But he was an eccentric, and thus was rejected in many ways. And perhaps he did just ask too much for his ideas.
We just posted a picture of Tesla and Mark Twain together on Twitter. Have you ever seen that picture? Okay.
I don't think so.
Okay, I will definitely send this picture to you. It's pretty cool.
Are they aware of each other's presence?
Yes, they're in the photograph together. Yeah, it's a pretty amazing picture.
I don't think I've heard of that before.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. If you go on Twitter right now, well, I don't want to interrupt the interview.
No, I don't have access to the internet right now.
Okay. Now let's switch to Mars. Was there ever a civilization there? Was there intelligence on Mars?
Well, of course, I've always believed in the existence of Martian intelligence. We have the face of Mars. It was discovered by the Viking 1 orbiter. And again, that's in the northern latitudes of Mars, an area known as Cydonia, for the record, for those who aren't familiar. It appears to be a human face, 2/3 of a mile from chin across from eye to eye and 1 mile from crown to chin, has a human hairline, eyes, nose, mouth, chin. Certainly appears to be human. And when it was discovered, 2 scientists at NASA who were working on the project at Viking said it was inherently different from the surrounding terrain. Then there was another study a few years after that, that it was in no way an optical illusion, that this is a genuine figure. Of course, there's been a lot of controversy, and the government says that the photos were tampered with, but I think the tampering came from our side, from the government side, trying to debunk the idea that there is a face of Mars. And we've had other structures that have been found on Mars. And then at the Bonneville crater in 2004, the Spirit rover found another humanoid face. This had a cone head appearance. It's about the size of an actual human head. And this argues, first of all, for the idea that possibly the Martians were cone heads. And of course, one idea is that we had Martians who evolved on the planet, on the red planet. Another idea that these were travelers from another planet, even another solar system, even another galaxy, who set up a base on Mars and possibly came down to Earth. Now, as far as that goes, I've always argued that the Egyptian civilization argues for the possibility of Martians, because if we have cone heads on Mars, such as found in 2004, that one structure, then we look at the Egyptians of the early period. Osiris, their chief god, always wore a cone-headed headpiece. Then we have Menes, the man who united Upper and Lower Egypt about 3000 BC, always wore a cone-headed headpiece. Then we have Akhenaten and Nefertiti. Akhenaten certainly had a non-human-looking face and head, and Nefertiti always wore that famous crowned hat of hers, and her 6 daughters were shown, depicted in artistry, as having cone heads. Now, what might have happened was the original cone heads came from Mars, and over time there was intermarriage, and that, for example, the cone-headed daughters of Nefertiti and Akhenaten actually had boards placed against their heads as they were babies to impart a cone-headed appearance to them in honor of the cone-headed ancestors. But I've always argued that the possibility that the advanced Egyptian civilization may have emerged from Mars, and that's the main piece of evidence for it. Have you heard that before?
Yeah, absolutely. We're going to follow up with that. We're going to take a quick break. Doctor, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be back after this. And this is Fade to Black. If you've got any questions, they're rolling in on Twitter. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com, and I'll be back right after this with Dr. Franklin Ruehl. This is Bespoke Radio for the Masses, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us, everybody.
Hi everybody, this is Rob Halford, the Metal Guard on JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? My name's Brian Taylor, Ninja Badass Extraordinaire, and this is JimmyChurchRadio.com.
JJCR, in your face.
JimmyChurchRadio.com on the Dark Matter Radio Network.
All right, everybody, welcome back. Fade to Black. We were just working on the audio there during the break, and we'll see if it is any better. All right, Doctor, are you with us?
I hear you.
Okay. Okay, we're doing the best that we can on our end, Doctor. The connection is what it is, but let's just move forward, okay? And okay, now.
So I was arguing that possibly cone-headed Martians came to Earth and established the Egyptian civilization. As far as Mars goes, possibly as the Martian atmosphere thinned, the entities there migrated underground. And if we were to go there and check the caves and underground, we might find some entity still on Mars. By the way, that rocket ship XM, for those not familiar with the movie, I thought came up with an excellent point. Our space travelers landed on Mars, even though they're headed for the moon. And I thought, realistically, they didn't wear spacesuits, but at least they wore oxygen masks, because spacesuits would have been too cumbersome. And they encountered a race of cavemen. The cavemen, they found evidence of a nuclear war with radiative metals. They realized there was a war there and that the civilization reverted to the caveman stage. And, of course, what was very interesting, Hugh O'Brien, by the way, was the navigator. Hugh O'Brien, who played Wyatt Earp on TV. Lloyd Bridges in it, John Emery, Asa Masson.
Right.
An excellent cast, well-written script. But the cavemen attacked our astronauts and killed several of them, and only Lloyd Bridges and Asa Masson and Hugh O'Brien were able to escape. But they had run out of fuel, and their rocket ship crashed on Earth. And I thought that was an excellent ending, because normally the hero and heroine survive, but you remember an ending like that where they die at the end. And I thought that they really stuck to realism there. By the way, at the time this film was being made, so was Destination Moon, George Powell production. They had more money, better special effects, and color. But this is still my favorite of the early movies.
I remember our astronauts didn't really have real spacesuits, but they did. It was really funny. They had helmets, and they were all prepared and ready to go, and we just showed up with that weird thing over our mouths. And you have to go back and see the movie. But yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a really good point. Now, back to I do want to talk about Mars a little bit. The thing is, I think we're not getting the truth out of NASA. And what I mean by that is, I don't know if there's a conspiracy or something strange going on, but what I do mean is, I think we could do more to find out what is really going on Mars. And I feel like we operate at 50%. I know if I was running NASA, I would do it completely different.
Well, as I said, I would have done it. Warner von Braun had a project. He's going to send 2 spacecraft to Mars in 1981. One would spend 6 months in orbit while the other was on the surface for 6 months, and they'd reverse positions and then return jointly. And again, with the face of Mars, we need to inspect that up close, including an archaeologist on the team. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it is just an illusion. But I point out we have on Earth the 4 faces at Mount Rushmore, the 3 heroes of the Confederacy down in Georgia, the Sphinx in Egypt, the world's largest Buddha in Bami in Afghanistan actually is destroyed by the Taliban. But an alien probe photographing these objects and sending it back to their world might also meet with skepticism. Some would say that those aren't really human beings or creatures of intelligence. They're just rock structures. So, again, the only way to prove this is to send a manned team that would inspect it. Of course, we would hope they'd give us the truth when they came back instead of cover up. But this calls for a manned expedition. We had the ability to go to Mars as early as 80, and now we're talking about 2020, hopefully, and then there's even a question we're going to have the money for it. I mean, we should have already had bases on the outer planets, not just Mars and the Moon, and, of course, Venus and Mercury, too. We had that ability, and we just let it shrivel up. I
had said on the show last week, one of the things that was fascinating for me over the last, it was our whole idea of what a future world was going to be in the 40s and the 50s and the 60s. You know, you remember the kitchens of the future, the world of the future, the cities of the future, cars of the future. Everything was the future, the future, the future. And when we were going through the 60s and the early 70s, it seemed like we were at such a clip of advancement at that time that a space station and a base on the moon and a base on Mars was inevitable. It's what we were going to do. Everything stopped. Everything. There is... And I said, and I'm going to ask you this right now. I asked everybody listening on the show, when you look out the window
Does it look like the future to you, or does it look just like it did in 1969? What has changed for you out there that says that we are in the future right now? And the answer is nothing. When you look outside in Glendale, what aside from Americana, by the way, but what feels different to you in Glendale now than in 1975?
No, it isn't. It's not what's in the cities, but it is our technology with the internet, how that's changed everything. And then, of course, cell phones and iPhones. The rate of progress is absolutely exponential. And we're talking about even improving the speed of computers so they'll be 1 billion times more efficient than they are today in the future. So the technology has increased. Although looking outside, it still appears to be the same.
Yeah, exactly. There's no flying cars. There's no floating cities. We did have, if you think about it, we had, cell phones or versions of it and in cars in the 60s. That's, and it's not, we had computers in the 60s and the 70s, certainly not personal computers, but we had all of that technology. What I'm referring to is that whole grandiose city of the future never happened. Not only did it never happen, but it was never even pursued.
That's true. As you referred that, mentioning the underground city, I think we also talked about underwater cities too, possibly.
Yeah, exactly. And none of it happened. None of it. I just don't get it. I was so excited as a kid growing up in the 60s and the 70s. I was so excited about what was right around the corner. And, 2001 A Space Odyssey was such a, and that was in 1968 when that movie came out. That was 32 years into the future. We were certainly going to get there and blow past it in 2001. We're in 2015 and we don't even have rockets and we don't even have the space shuttle program and we don't have anything right now. It's like everything just stopped.
I know, and as I say, I'm so disappointed with space exploration because I wanted to find out what's on Mars, and they're talking about 2020 as a possibility, and I can see where they might even back that up. But what can you do?
Yeah, exactly. You want to take some phone calls? You want to open up the phone lines?
Okay.
All right.
I wanted to talk about that Malibu.
You want to talk about the Malibu base?
Yeah, why don't we do that now?
Oh, let's do it.
Okay, since you're the discoverer.
No, I'm just the messenger, Doctor. I know that you're very aware of what's going on around us. So let me ask you: the first time that you saw the pictures, what did you think? What did you think you were looking at?
To be honest, the first time I thought it was just a natural structure. But looking at the photos again and reevaluating them, I'm most impressed with the pillars, which are 600 feet tall.
Right.
Supporting that. And that certainly has the look of artificiality about it. And then, as you say, the structure itself is so immense and could harbor anything. I think what we need to do is have you say divers can't go down there because it's too deep. Could a mini-sub be used? And I was wondering, now the cost could be prohibitive, but have you heard of this Kickstarter program?
Oh, absolutely.
Have you thought of posting this on that?
We have so many people that want to help us out with that and some other things. So yes, the answer is yes. I don't think that we may not need to do that with the program that we've got set up right now. And it looks like there's some funding that's involved. It's a little bit complicated and hard to explain, but the particular ship that we're looking to use carries its own funding for research, so we're okay there. So we're getting close. We did fly out, Doctor. We went out, or I did, last Sunday and flew around and videotaped. And one of the interesting things that we saw wasn't so much the structure itself, but it was that a dive boat was at our GPS coordinates at the south edge, directly above the pillars that you're referring to. There's a dive boat down there, and it was a big boat. It wasn't like, a 20-foot boat. This was, 80 feet, 100-foot large boat with a lot of people on deck and sitting directly above those pillars. And it was the only boat for miles. As a matter of fact, when we were flying around the structure and looking at this boat, you can see in the videotape, we'll publish this, post this video in the next couple of days. There isn't another boat anywhere on the Pacific Ocean as we're flying around. Nothing. It was the only boat there. Now, does that indicate something? What it indicates is interest, and somebody was there. Is it government? I don't know. Is it private? I don't know. Could we see any markings on the boat? No. But it's interesting that out of every place, any place that this boat could have been, it was directly above those pillars that you're referring to.
Well, one thing I wanted to remark about is the possibility of underwater UFO bases around the globe, such as the Bermuda Triangle. And the question, first of all, would be, why would aliens have an underwater base? Well, one possibility is that they're from an aquatic planet and thus are used to living in the water. Another possibility is that they are from a high-pressure planet. For example, they could be from Venus, where the surface pressure is 90 times out on Earth, and they would seek the ocean, an oceanic base, because there the pressure increases as you decrease in depth. And this could be the reason they have underwater bases. And of course, they might be here doing just basic exploration, scientific analysis, or, on a more devious note, engaging in something such as climatological warfare. I like to mention this, all the possibilities, but there are two ways that they might want to have a UFO base to alter our climate. One might be that they're from a cold planet, and they want to Martianize our planet, not that necessarily from Mars, but from a colder planet. And to do this, they could engage in what's called iron fertilization. Iron dust sprayed into the ocean would increase planktonic growth. Plankton draw down carbon dioxide, and if you had a massive amount, you could cool our planet by drawing down the CO2. The idea is that this could make it more comfortable for them. Possibly it could be to such an extent that it would destroy mankind. And the time it would take, we don't know. It wouldn't be overnight, obviously. Another possibility is that they're from a warmer planet, such as Venus, and they want to Venusificate us. Again, it could be a warmer planet from outside our solar system. And to do that, they could melt methane cubes, methane blocks on the ocean surface, which would bubble up on the ocean floor, which would bubble up to the surface and into the atmosphere. Methane is actually a more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. And thus, this would be a way to heat up our planet. Now, these may sound like extreme ideas, but I think they at least offer some reason, some rationalization for why ETs might have an underwater base, whether it's in the Bermuda Triangle or off of Malibu.
And you also brought up another point, and I want to get back to this, with, Mount Rushmore, the pyramids in Giza, whatever, these large objects. Think about what the Malibu deep underwater base could represent in the last ice age if it was indeed above sea level on dry land. Now we're looking at a large temple-like structure that not only could be entered but could be seen from just about anywhere, because it's a mile wide, it's a couple miles wide, a mile and a half deep, and sitting 600 feet with the pillars plus the roof. Now you're looking at 1,000-foot tall structure. It would be large and immense and intimidating, and certainly could be seen from anywhere. And the comparisons to that back to now, I'm not when it comes to Mars and Cydonia, I'm still on the fence about that. I've looked at all the evidence. I've had everybody on this program talking about it. I'm still in the middle. We need more exploration there. Just like you're saying, we need more answers. We don't have enough from Mars. I don't understand why we haven't gone back to Cydonia with a complete investigation of it. I don't understand why, but we haven't. But it is an example of being able to see something from space. You can certainly see the pyramids, and this structure out here 10,000 years ago, if it would be, above sea level sitting on dry land, it would be immense. Might be the biggest thing on the planet, actually, to see from anywhere.
And, well, the structure doesn't seem to have any meaning to us. For aliens, it might, or there might have been some erosion that's changed the structure itself.
Yeah, and you're right. One of the exciting things here is we've discovered something. Not, we haven't really discovered it's there. We're the ones presenting the evidence, I should say. But it is something that, no matter what it is, if it's natural or if it's man-made or if it's a natural structure that was modified by another civilization, just like we've taken advantage of different cave structures around the world and lived there and dug and modified and turned into homes. It could be the same situation. We don't know, but getting down there in a submersible and cruising around and lighting it up certainly would tell us that. And whatever the structure is, no matter what it is, it is a discovery, and it is fascinating, and it is large.
And I think we should point out, when we're talking about the possibility that's of alien origin, it might be an advanced civilization equivalent to something like Atlantis, which created that, and then that civilization died off. And for whatever reason, this went to the ocean bottom. Are you open to that possibility?
Well, yeah, of course. Everything is on the table. We don't know. And you, being a resident of California, Southern California, you've known and heard the same reports that all of us here in Southern California have had for decades about, UFO and lights and activity right at that exact spot off of the coast of Malibu for as long as we can remember. And you've heard the same reports that I have.
Absolutely.
And I get it all the time. How can you just jump to alien base? Well, unless you live here, then you just don't know. These reports, of course, we're going to jump to that conclusion because this is exactly what researchers and ufologists have been looking for forever off of the coast of Malibu.
So when will you next approach it?
We're working on that now. We are working on it. I mean, we had to go out and do the flyby. We had to get that out of the way. We're working on it. The logistics of putting this together, it's not just the boat. It is, we have a film crew, a back line, a couple of divers. We have the ROVs, the ship itself, and putting all of that together and getting it logistically all in one spot at one time. So I wish it was just as simple as jumping in a boat and grabbing a video camera, putting it on the end of a string and throwing it overboard. It's not that simple. It's a little bit more complicated than that.
Now, approaching it, and if you find you can't enter it, would you use explosives? I mean, just as a question of what you do if you're approaching a pyramid, how do you enter it if there's no apparent entrance?
Well, yeah, that's another great question. And also there's a couple of other things that come into play here. One of them, or two of them, are Wainimi and Magoo. Those are two military installations. So if we go out there with a ship and start doing research out there, would we be blocked? Would somebody stop us from doing that? That's the other aspect. And so we don't know. Now, if we get down there and we can't get into it, yeah, I don't know.
You don't want to damage it, but on the other hand, would you have a laser drill, for example? That might be a possibility.
Yeah, and these are all the things, everything that you're proposing here is what we should be doing on Mars. Right. Everything that you are suggesting. One of the things that I had said, I don't want to switch gears off of Malibu, but it is a natural segue, which is this. Why do we have these feeble attempts at digging or drilling on Mars? Why don't we send up a serious shovel? When you can go to any heavy equipment store here and rent a bobcat so you can dig a hole in your yard, right? And you know what I'm talking about, a little backhoe. Why aren't we sending one of those up to Mars? That's what why aren't we digging holes with that? What are we doing digging these little dinky holes? I don't get that. And why aren't we sending probes and rovers to the frost and where the water supposedly is on Mars? Why aren't we going there? I don't understand that.
Well, obviously, we should send probes to every area of Mars. But again, a manned mission is what I want. We should have done it. We didn't. I wanted to mention also about the pyramids before I forget. Such as the Khufu's pyramid, the largest of them. Estimated 20 years to build it. There were perhaps 1.5 million blocks, anywhere from a ton to even 10 tons. The question is, could man have done that in 20 years? I calculated they'd have to put one stone up every 1 3/4 of a minute because there were so many, and they had to take time off for eating, for religious ceremonies, for weather. So it doesn't seem possible that even the old heave-ho effect, the muscle effect, would be enough to create that the Pyramid of Khufu. So the question is, how was that built? Possibly alien help. Aliens might have something such as a levitation device to move those stones in place. We've also heard of the members of the Egyptian Mystery School who were their academics. Possibly they came up with some way to do it, and ETs were not involved. But the basic idea of the grunt and groan method of building the three great pyramids, but especially Khufu's, just doesn't seem to hold water.
For me, I'll ask you this.
Yeah.
First off, the absolute absence of hieroglyphics on that pyramid when they tagged and graffitied every other temple and site and everything else in Egypt, but Khufu doesn't have anything on it.
And Khufu was never buried in that pyramid for him.
No. So that's where I raise an eyebrow. That's the first thing. The second thing is it's not okay. Have you ever, in your experience in gardening at your house or whatever, have you ever had to cut a brick at your home?
To be honest, no, I've never cut a brick.
Okay, well, I have.
What did you use?
Exactly. Check this out. I went a brick. I'm talking about a brick, a red brick. I go to Home Depot. I get a brick chisel, and we're laying bricks in the backyard. And, we need to make a couple of corners, and we've got to shorten these bricks, to lay the bricks correctly. So I go get a brick chisel. And I think, okay, this is going to be easy. Let me tell you something. A little tiny red brick with a brick chisel took me a half hour to trim one brick down to one little brick. Now, we are talking about, I don't care how fancy and advanced a stonemason is, or if you got 20 guys on this brick with chisels. And also back then they were using copper chisels and stones to trim those huge stones down. But to get one of those stones sort of the right size for the pyramid would take forever. And you just brought up the good point. They've got to mine, move, transport, and place one in a minute or two to do that in 20 years. That's where my BS meter goes off the charts.
Plus, they seem to be in perfect alignment, too.
Yes, exactly. So I'm in the backyard trimming these red bricks, and I just stopped and thought to myself, if this is what I'm going through to trim this little 2-inch by 4-inch brick to place, or 6-inch by 6, whatever I needed for my custom sizes in the backyard, I can't imagine what these guys were going through to build the Great Pyramid. So I back up. This is what I think, and I'll throw this back to you. I think the pyramid was already there. I think the pyramids were already there. I think Khufu's pyramid, when the Upper and Lower Egypt came together and the first dynasty started to roll, that pyramid was already sitting there, and it had been sitting there for thousands of years, and it took a long time to build, and they just built Egypt around that pyramid. It was already sitting there.
So again, we have the possibility it was an ancient advanced civilization from Earth that did that, or perhaps an alien civilization.
Absolutely. Yeah, there's no question about that. I have no problems going there. I don't. And and I know that you've mentioned this before, but with and I've said it so many times on this show, but it's a point that needs to be driven home so everybody just understands one fundamental thing. The Egyptians just didn't, and Mesopotamia too, and the Sumerians, just didn't wake up one day and go from being cavemen to mathematics, farming, government, advanced astrology, and knowledge of North and South poles and true North, and just bang out a pyramid like that in 20 years. And that was the start of it all. It didn't happen that way. And it irritates me that Orthodox archaeology wants us to accept that as the de facto, end all be all and the start of civilization. I just don't buy it.
I agree with you. I mean, it's one thing perhaps to create a human lion, but even that would be a task. But these pyramids just don't fit the bill.
No, and I love John Anthony West's research, him and Robert Schoch with the Great Sphinx. And it's not only the erosion side of things and going back to 10,000 BC, 12,000 years ago, 10,500 BC, and when the last rains fell. There is that aspect of it, but the head was not what we see it today. It's too small, and the Sphinx has been there for 10,000 years, and I think that the Sphinx was erected at probably the same time as those pyramids were, and I just. It makes such perfect sense to guys like you and myself and most of the listeners on this show. It just amazes me that nobody wants to go back and research this and possibly rewrite history. It's okay if we do. We're just learning. It's okay to be wrong. We're just learning. And I just don't get that.
Well, it's always exciting to find new information. And if you have to change a theory, that's great.
Yeah, what is wrong with that? And the answer is nothing.
That's expanding our knowledge.
Expanding and learning. And that's how we got to where we are now. With Galileo and spanning the oceans, and Columbus and being inquisitive and going out there and questioning, the world is not flat. You're not going to fall off the end of the ocean when you get out there. And it all harkens back to all of that. So, yeah, maybe the pyramids are just a little bit older. Maybe there was another civilization a while ago that died out. Maybe. But you know what? Let's question it and go out there and just find out. There needs to be more guys like you, Dr. Ruehl.
Right. Do you believe the possibility that Atlantis did exist and was an advanced civilization that ultimately destroyed itself?
Yeah, I believe that wholeheartedly. And I don't think Plato made it up. I don't think Plato was drinking a bunch of wine and came up with a crazy story. I don't believe that. And now, where was Atlantis? I think Atlantis was probably exactly where he said it was, outside of Gibraltar. And, outside of, between Spain and Morocco, probably sitting right there. And that's what I believe. And it was a long time ago. And you're the doctor. Here I am. I'm talking to you. I'm not some educated guy. Okay. So let's start there. But when you, in the last ice age with North America, the miles high ice that was sitting on this continent through Canada caused pressure in the Atlantic, in that area. There's a give and take with the Earth's crust, and absolutely there was probably a very nice continent that was sitting there a long time in a very temperate zone. It wasn't frozen, and it sat above. As the ice age ended and the ice melted over here in North America, the crust rose, and when the crust rose, Atlantis sank, And that's what I think. That's my crazy theory, but that's what I'm going with.
That's a very good theory, because I've always been open to the idea that Atlantis did indeed exist, and that Plato was correct.
Yeah, now how advanced was it? We don't know. How long was it there? We don't know. Did they have electricity and computers and use for minerals and gold and diamonds and everything else? All of that came much, much later. Plato didn't write about that, but he did write about its very existence. And how long it was there? It could have been a long time. A 50,000-year advanced civilization there. How far did they take technology? Well, you know what? We don't know. But do I think Atlantis existed? Yeah, I think Plato based everything on truth as he knew it.
And again, considering the age of our planet, just 4.5 billion years old, a civilization that's 50,000 years old really is just a twinkling of your eyebrow.
What do you, and I'm watching Twitter here, have you been studying Göbekli Tepe at all?
No.
Okay. Göbekli Tepe, it's exactly what we're talking about here. And then, this is another show at another time, and we'll get back to this. But Göbekli Tepe is a site up in Turkey that has been dated to 10,000 BC, approximately 12,000 years old, possibly a little bit older. But the site itself shows some crazy advanced stuff. And it was deliberately buried. Okay, that's the first thing. It was deliberately buried about 7,000 to 8,000 years ago, or 7,000 to 8,000 BC. And we know that through carbon dating. And all of this is official stuff. But what it does show on a couple of these pillars of carvings are examples of metallurgy and belts and belt buckles and things of this nature. Now, if that indeed was happening 12,000 years ago, 10,000 BCE, then there's a gap that is happening between Mesopotamia, Sumerian culture, Egypt, and then what had to have happened up in Göbekli Tepe, which was advanced farming, civilization, culture, a political system, possibly religion, and certainly the ability to wear clothes that weren't animal skins. And it's a pretty exciting time that's going on up there. It's called Göbekli Tepe. I'll send you that and check that out. I can only imagine your next video, to be honest with you. All right, let's take a quick break, Doctor, and then we'll come back and we'll start taking some phone calls. How's that?
Okay, I hope you can hear me okay.
Yeah, you're loud and clear now. Okay,
great.
So let's take a quick break and let's get the phone calls going for Dr. Franklin Ruehl. I'll be back right after this. Keep the emails going, Jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. Twitter is lighting up. Everybody's talking about Atlantis.
How about Facebook?
Facebook. It's all lighting up, Doctor. You're the best. We'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Stay with us, everybody.
La Crescenta, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Jimmy Church.
My name is Alan, and I listen to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Reiner from Anvil, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
What's up? I'm Chris. What up? This is Kyle Massey, and you're listening to Jimmy Church Radio, the Revolution.
All right, everybody, welcome back. It's kind of funny. I'm watching the comments on Twitter about me and the bricks in the backyard. I'm telling you right now, hardened steel, hammer of doom, all of the technology to make that brick chisel, and I got nowhere. And it was rough and hard. And a copper chisel
And I see Eugene is talking about a tile. So stop. We're talking 2.5 million rocks that were carved, and no, I will never buy into that. Absolutely impossible. But you know what I did see, Doctor? I saw a really interesting documentary about not carving those stones and not quarrying those stones, but actually making molds and pouring them and making the making out of water and granite powder and limestone powder, mixing that together like cement and pouring it into wooden molds, and it would set up in a day. In a day, you could actually now I saw a whole video on this with making rocks that size that were used in Giza, not little ones, major big ones, and how it would set up and what it looked like versus what those stones look like today. Now, that is pretty crazy, and that is very, very smart, and that is also a possibility. Something that, you know what, they want to blow it off, but if you think about pouring, instead of mining that stuff and bringing it up and rolling it on rocks and rolling it on wooden rollers and sleds and wet sand and getting it up there, no, maybe they were just pouring molds on site. And that's a pretty interesting hypothesis. What do you think about that?
I think I saw that documentary, and the question is, can we test the stones in Egypt, in the pyramids, to see if that could be the case? Is there a way to distinguish between a naturally occurring rock and one that you're actually molding?
Yeah, and when you look at the two of them next to each other, it looks like a quarried rock. It looks like it was carved and cut. You can't really tell the difference. And you saw the documentary?
Yes, I recall now that I did.
Absolutely fascinating. Okay, let's open up the phone lines.
Okay.
323-825-5045. 323-825-5045. And again, this is an opportunity for you to talk to, and I'm serious, Doctor, you're an American icon. And
that's never true.
I got to tell you, everything that you have, I've watched so much of your stuff, and while we're waiting for the phone lines to open up and get some calls going in, who does your production? How do you get all of that done?
Well, that was public access. Now I just use a camcorder and stand in front of it for the ones where I'm wearing a white coat, or some of the recent ones I've added, such as the one she mentioned. No, the pigeons actually was from a studio, the public access studio. But now I had to have in fact, I got the camcorder. This is interesting. I was auditioning for the role of George Bush, who I don't resemble, don't sound like. And the guy came and said, "We see your record. Could you do a conspiracy theory for us? This is video junk." I said, "Of course." I did that. Then I send out my weekly 13 strange ideas of the week. And they said, could I do that? Have bizarre news for them? And they gave me this camcorder. We did, 48 episodes. Then they canceled it. But I kept the camcorder, and the camcorders really helped because I can take still photos, video, and audio. And that's what I do now, just to set up the camcorder and make my presentation.
And
so it's not the quality that we had in the studio, but that's all I can do right now.
And you do your own editing, and you upload yourself and do everything yourself?
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely incredible. 323-825-5045. Questions for Dr. Ruehl. Okay, let's get over to email really quick, too, as well. What happened in your life? You had some epiphany somewhere where you got into this. You took a left turn somewhere. What happened?
Well, let me just explain. I think I'm a child of the TV era because I love watching sci-fi on TV, such as the Space Patrol, Rocky Jones' Space Ranger, and films such as Rocket Ship XM and Destination Moon. And that really got me interested in that. And I went to major in science, specifically physics. I was an instructor at UCLA. I thought I was going to get tenure, at least get an assistant professorship. Did not get that. But at the same time, I was already lecturing on the scientific evidence for UFOs and ETs. I felt that too many scientists were just ignoring the evidence. And I was able to get some lecture bookings at various aerospace firms and other organizations. And then I had read about public access TV in the LA Times. I had heard about it, but I read this article, and I said, maybe I should do that since I'm not getting my professorship. And I began also writing articles for various publications, such as the National Examiner, on the scientific evidence for UFOs. In fact, they first interviewed me on that. Then I made the transition from being an interviewee to an interviewer, and I had a regular income from that, going on TV shows as a guest and producing my public access show. So if I had actually gotten my professorship, such as at UCLA, I might have had trouble talking about UFOs. They might have felt that was too controversial and either fired me or threatened to. So that's why I'm here today, because I didn't get that professorship back in the early days.
What your what's the word I want to use? The other doctors and professors that were around you when you were talking about all of these fringe topics.
I felt they really were they're afraid to speak up, or just very narrow-minded, very conservative in their thinking.
Were you able to change minds?
Well, I don't know, but I felt that no scientist was bringing this, what I call the serious scientific evidence for extraterrestrial life. Again, I'm probably a child of TV series where they may not have presented that evidence, but I felt, as my scientific research, there was tremendous evidence for extraterrestrial life and hence UFOs, and a sort of a quest of mine to present that. So again, but that's not why I didn't get my position, because I didn't know about my UFO activities. Just a matter of chance there weren't the positions open. Because I thought I was going to continue at UCLA, where I secured my PhD. I was a teaching assistant, then became a teaching associate, and the next step would have been assistant professor, but I did not get that.
Okay, here's a question from email. It says, what do you think about the double slit experiment? Does it prove a holographic universe in that without observation, particles take a waveform, or does it prove a multiverse?
I don't think it proves either. I know the idea of the holographic universe is interesting, but I have to reject it. I'm open to the idea that there are parallel universes. This just seems to be within the realm of feasibility. But the double split doesn't prove it. Doesn't prove either that for the holographic universe or the parallel universe. But holographic, I'm a skeptic about. Parallel universe, I'm open to that. And the idea perhaps that we have different bubble universes. Because if our universe exists as it is today with that Big Bang, then virtually anything is possible.
Okay, here's another question. It seems to me that science advances rely on big money. Unfortunately, those who have all the money don't want the status quo to change. Their monopoly on finance would be in danger of disappearing. So, the only serious money that is available to the scientific community is that which is used to maintain the status quo. What do you think?
I'm afraid that's true. I think that's a very accurate statement. People are afraid of change, afraid of what new discovery might mean, upsetting the thinking of ordinary men. Of course, they've always said the government's kept the information about UFOs because they don't want us to panic. It could have some sort of a financial impact. People started believing UFOs and ETs were more important than humans, more powerful. So, and of course, the money powers don't want change. They like that status quo. So I think that statement's pretty accurate. What do you think?
Yeah, well, I totally agree. I argue it all the time. Okay, this one's a little long, but I'm just going to read it to you. Hi. Does the doctor... Okay, I've got a call coming in, too, as well, so we'll grab this, too, at the same time.
It'll be our first call of the night.
Yes. Okay, you know what? Let's just do it. Hi, you're... let me turn it up. Okay, we are good. Hi, you're live with Dr. Ruehl. Who's calling?
It's Kramer.
Kramer, hi.
Hi, Kramer.
Hey, how's it going? I've heard that there's possibly already moon bases out there, and that there's something on the dark side of the moon. I was wondering if we could get the doctor to comment on that.
Okay. Hey, Kramer, thank you. Where are you calling from, Kramer?
From New York.
All right. Enjoying the show so far?
It's a great show. I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, thank you, Kramer. Sorry about the audio. We're working on that, but
I'm trying to speak.
Hey, it sounds good. No, I can hear.
Okay. Fantastic. Thanks, Kramer, and we'll take the question off the air.
Thanks.
Okay, so he's asking about structures on the moon that might be alien in nature.
And the possibility of them already existing.
Well, we just had a special on the Sci-Fi Channel last Sunday, Aliens on the Moon, where they analyzed a number of structures that appear to be non-natural on the moon, and then, of course, the question of whether or not a UFO pursued the Apollo 8 on its way to the moon. And I'm open to that. Again, we need to send scientific teams to evaluate it. Again, the scientific teams, if they're government-controlled, might not tell us the truth about them. But there's so many photos of apparent structures on the moon. I'm always open to that. And again, the idea that with the atmosphere so thin, virtually non-existent on the moon, possibly there's air in caves that are sealed off, or perhaps aliens have found a way to create an atmosphere. So certainly a possibility. I've also mentioned this science. It came about 1976. Two Russian physicists argued that our moon is a non-natural object. They argued this for a couple of reasons. First, that the moon appears to be in a nearly perfectly orbit about the Earth, whereas most planetary moons occupy elliptical orbits.
Right.
They also pointed out that when probes were dropped from our various explorations to the moon, they yielded what are called bell-shaped Gaussian distributions, suggesting that the moon inside might be hollow. And the idea is that some sort of transition was used by advanced civilizations, perhaps their planet was dying, and they created a moon, transformed an existing moon into a giant spaceship and orbited around the Earth. Now, if this sounds fantastic, I point out that Robert Goddard, our rocket pioneer from the 1930s, had actually argued that we Earthlings in the future might have to do that, that as we face some sort of astronomical catastrophe, such as an asteroidal impact, or further down the line, our sun expanding into a red giant, we would have to leave Earth, and what we might be able to do is convert asteroids and possibly even meteors into spaceships that would carry the terrestrial population to a safe location. Now, again, I know that sounds perhaps fantastic, but again, society even 1,000 years older than we might be able to do that. So one idea is that inside our moon we might find the remnants of an alien civilization, possibly still aliens there, in addition to the external objects that appear to be non-natural.
Let's take our next call. Here we go. And I think this is Dino. Dino, are you with us?
Yes, hello. How are you this evening? I want to speak to a doctor to your strengths, which seem to be physics. I'm not a physicist, but it seems to me that all these things we're discussing are the game over if we can talk about, is it possible to go from, instead of going from point A to B, to indeed fold space and have, space jumps, so to speak, as they talk about in science fiction. And number two, another technology is the transporter. A couple of years ago, some guys, I think in Holland, some scientists said, oh yeah, we were able to transport a molecule. So if we are being kept from this technology, do you believe this technology is here, that we already have transporters, that we already have the ability to fold space? If that's the case, then game over. Life is visiting from other universes.
May I say first, I do believe that, I mentioned that earlier, that the very existence of our island universe proves that we can, I think, violate the so-called principles of science and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, that you can't measure a particle's position and momentum at the same time, or the idea that, well, we have electrons in the s orbit around an atom, around the nucleus. 90% of the time maybe in the s orbit, 10% in the p orbit. This uncertainty is something that argues that anything is possible, including teleportation, and I've argued that that's certainly possible for an advanced civilization. And again, you mentioned the scientists who have now taken molecules and apparently teleported them. And that's, I think, quanta is what they did first. It wasn't an actual molecule, but they're working on that. I don't think we have it yet on Earth. We're too far from that. I don't think they're hiding that technology from us. But I'm certainly open to the idea that other advanced civilizations, again, we're talking about a civilization could be 1 million years older than we are, and that's just the blinking of the eyelash, and in terms of cosmological time spans. We're talking about a universe 13.7 billion years old. So a society 1 million years older than us could, maybe just 10,000 years older, may have accomplished this already. I don't think we have, but it's certainly in the foreseeable future for us also.
One of the things, I was talking about this today on another program, but I firmly believe this, and for anybody out there that insists that we're alone and we've never been visited by anybody, I just say this, and it addresses exactly what you're talking about, and it's very simple. What are we doing here as a society, as humans? What are we doing? We are, as primitive as it is, we are sending probes out, to the moon, to Mars, sending things to Venus and Jupiter and Saturn and Pluto and beyond, and Voyager and all of that. It can't, with another civilization out there looking back at us, they would be doing the exact same thing. And you're talking about 1,000 years advanced. How about 1 million or 2 million or 3 million or 1 billion years advanced? They know that we are here because they've been looking for a long time.
Absolutely. I was going to say now, what would their motivation be in coming to our planet? And I think we have to be open to all possibilities. They could just be here investigating, cataloging, and not interfering, perhaps adhering to the prime directive such as uttered on Star Trek. Or possibly they're here on a conquistadorial mission, but instead of an armed invasion, so to speak, it might be more subtle, such as I mentioned, climatological warfare, which could be in their purview. Or we could have a dispute. Some might want to conquer us, others might want to help us advance. So all possibilities are out there, and considering the number of possible planets and societies, if you just had one planet, for example, if we were to find a civilization on Mars that was inferior to us, there'd be some humans who'd want to enslave them, perhaps put them on television, on pay TV, or whatever it would be. Others would want to help them. Others would want to destroy them and take over. So just in our own populace, we would have many different approaches. So I think that's certainly possible with aliens, that they wouldn't necessarily have a monolithic approach to us. Some would want to help us, some just look at us, and others perhaps conquer us. I think all possibilities are on the table.
What is a plasma universe?
A plasma universe would be just one made of gases where they haven't had any solidification. And I don't think we have an entire universe like that, although it could be in its nascent stages. But even in that, as I've argued for zoroidal life, I think that life could exist in that. Life can exist in just any format. If we look at every single ecological niche on Earth, has some type of life in it that's adapted to it. So if they can adapt on Earth, I think they can adapt to other planets, free space, and even a plasma universe.
What about an electric universe?
Certainly a possibility. We just had this discovery of mic bacteria that are actually feasting on electrons right here on Earth. So if they could do it on Earth, we could have something comparable existing in an electronic universe. So I guess, again, I've said, today's science fiction often becomes tomorrow's science fact, that anything you can conceive of may be possible.
These are questions, by the way, from our listeners.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, pretty impressive, isn't it? And every single night doing this show, it impresses me so much what they know and where the knowledge is. Okay, next question.
May I ask this, just how have you been able to promote the show, because there's so much competition on?
You know what? We've never promoted the show.
You haven't?
No, never. And this the audience and the way that the show has been built is off of one thing and one thing only. We knew that. I need to say this correctly. If this show is interesting, then somebody else would find it interesting and then talk about it and talk about it and talk about it with other friends and so forth. So everything that we have done, just Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, certainly the network and Art Bell and Keith, that has a certain strength to it as well. But it has only been done in those fashions, just totally word on the street, which we believed from the very beginning would be the best type of advertising.
Well, I daily post something on Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, and try to virtually have a new YouTube posting not every day, but quite a few.
Well, that's what we do. Well, we try to. Oh, it is so much work. You know what it takes to put on quality programming. And you always have to find stuff fresh and things that people want to learn about. And it's always about learning and being inquisitive. And that's the nature of humans. And so that's what we try to do. We try to do that every single day, having guests on like yourself that can present an alternative view, one that is not in mainstream media, and that will cause people just to sit back and go, okay. And that's I think that is what the success of the show has been based on.
Okay, I'll keep trying harder.
No, you don't need to. you oh man, no, I don't think you understand the impact that you've had on all of us, and we love it. Okay, another call coming in. Hi, you're live with Dr. Ruehl on Fade to Black. Who's calling?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Rick. How's it going?
Hey, Rick, how you doing? Hey, you excited about next week?
Oh, yeah, man. In fact, I had to do a little bit of wrestling with my boss about the days off. I guess after I got promoted, my PTO didn't cross over.
Right on.
Yeah, it's been fun.
say good evening to the good doctor.
Hello, Dr. Ruehl. It is an honor and privilege to be able to speak with you.
Thank you
I've
for
enjoyed
calling.
everything that I've seen you on.
Okay, great.
And I can't hear him.
I said great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, you can't hear the doctor? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, I learned from Art way back in the day, turn off your radio.
Oh, there you go. That happened to me earlier today on Future Radio or Future Theater with Bill and Nancy. Here I am, supposed to be the seasoned veteran, and I call into their show and don't turn off the show. And I'm,
well, it's Bill and Nancy. I mean, it's easy to get excited.
Yeah, I was listening to their show before our show tonight, and I couldn't help myself. I had to call in. I love that show. So what do you have what do you have tonight for Dr. Ruehl?
Okay, couple of things. One, does he think that SETI is kind of going on the wrong path with looking for radio waves? Because if they are as advanced as we believe, not what your tenured scientist that's worried about keeping their paycheck is saying, but what realistic people say, they would have moved past radio waves. So radio frequency-wise, their planet would have been silent hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. They probably swapped over to light communication, which could be why, theoretically, we got fiber optic from Roswell. So that coinciding with their ability to move faster in light, if they're able to change their frequency, and why some people believe that you're more likely to see them through an ultraviolet spectrum rather than a regular traditional camera, shouldn't SETI be looking for light waves or ultraviolet or something like that? And also, a little bit off, if you notice a lot of your megalithic structures, the pyramids that are in South America, Japan even, if you notice they're all within a certain band around the equator. that would not be covered with ice during an ice age. Does he think that there's anything with that?
Oh, that's a great question. Okay, you want to take the answer off the air, Rick?
Sure. Thank you very much.
Okay, man. I'll see you tomorrow night.
So first of all, I think he's absolutely right with radio waves. It's possible because that they could still be communicating in that fashion, but something more sophisticated. There's just a new mysterious signal found in deep space that they're baffled by. Whether it's from an extraterrestrial civilization, I don't know, but we should consider different types of frequencies, different types of communication other than just radio waves, because what he said, an advanced civilization might have forgotten how to even send them.
Well,
so
we're almost
don't necessarily have to give up on radio wave, which we should expand if we have the money, we have the technology, looking for different possible ways of transmission from an alien. And again, it could be inadvertent. All of our video waves from 50 years ago, when we began going to television, the video waves would have been sent out into space. That's what we had in 2001. They had the images from Earth, but they didn't have the vocalizations. So we had been inadvertently signaling the civilizations out there that were here. And even if we wanted to avoid being found, it's too late now. So I think he's absolutely right. As far as all the structures being found on the equator, so they'd be. I've heard that theory before, but don't we have certainly some pyramids and other structures are beyond the equator, north and south of it? But I'm trying to think if that. Do you know if there are more?
Well, and it's an interesting theory. Well, okay. Before I answer that, let's go back to the radio wave thing.
Yeah.
Which is we're very close to not even using radio anymore on planet Earth. I mean, we are very close to that. Look at this show right now, and cable television and the internet and everything is hardwired. Now, I'm excluding Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and other things. But as far as radio waves go and television transmissions, we're very close to not using that at all now. And who knows what we're going to be using a very short time from now, 10 or 20 years. So absolutely, another civilization out there beaming back to us with radio waves seems a little primitive.
Right. Of course, if they're so far off, it could have been, let's say 5 billion years that the radio waves have been traveling. So they could be from a civilization no longer exists.
Exactly. And us going in the other direction. By the time they hear any radio waves from here, the sun will have already burnt us up into a crisp. So now, what was the second part? Yeah, megalithic structures. Yeah, and what he's referring to is things like not only Peru and Ecuador and Bolivia, but when you stretch around and look at Lebanon, the Mediterranean, Giza. And you keep stretching around and go through China, everything seems to be, close to the equator, either above or below. But we don't have any pyramids in Greenland or in northern Canada, or you know what I mean, and moving around the globe or further south. So why is that is the question. Is it because of ley lines? Is it because of, is there a reason for the megalithic structures to be grouped around the equator, north or south?
Well, my question is, do we have none at all that are not near the equator? I'm just trying to think of, for instance, is there nothing in South Africa?
Well, there's a lot of astronomical things, and Michael Tellinger certainly does a lot of research in South Africa now, and he is looking at stone structures. But do we have anything megalithic, like huge, like in Peru or
Mexico?
Yeah, Mexico. That's another great example. Yeah. And the answer is I don't think so. Another call coming in, Doctor. Let's grab it. Hi, you're live with Dr. Ruehl on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hey, Jimmy, it's Brad calling from Atlanta.
Hey, Brad, how are you, sir?
Doing good.
We're going to miss you next week, man. We're going to miss you next week.
Oh, no, I hate it. I can't fly out there this week. So.
We understand. So, Brad, what do you got going on? What do you got something for the good doctor tonight?
Yeah, I got a question for him. It's always puzzled me. It's about the quantum entanglement. I understand we can measure what happens to one particle and it's entangled with another particle. Why can't we use that for transmitting data faster than the speed of light?
Doctor?
That's a very good question. I think in the future we will be able to use it for that. Again, I think that the future of transmission communication is going to exceed by a tremendous factor what we have today. And quantum entanglement, I think, has been proposed for that. But how we would do it exactly, I don't know. But I think that's certainly a possibility.
What about, and Brad, Brad's still on the line. I don't know if he has another question. Oh, no, he's gone now. Okay. What about Einstein and traveling faster than the speed of light? What will it take to do it? And do you think it will be possible?
Oh, I definitely do. I mean, again, with all these other violations we have in physics and the uncertainty of quantum physics, I think the speed of light is surpassable, and it's just a matter of time before we find out how to do it. But warp drive definitely will be in the future. Not the next 10 years or 100 years, but certainly out there, and other civilizations may well have achieved that. That's always bothered me, that the speed of light is an upper limit.
Well, this is where okay, let me throw this out there at you.
Okay.
We're traveling at we now, you and I, we are on our starcraft, right? And we are now moving past the speed of light. Are we now in darkness? Where does the light go that is with us? That's the question. What do we see if we are moving faster than the speed of light and we are going forward? What happens to the light around us? Do we not see it at all?
I'm not sure. No, that's a very good question. I assume that we would be able to see it, and that it would be just a matter of someone traveling fast. What you see, you just would see it at a faster rate.
Well, for example, let's talk about something really fundamental. Let's say you have a light on your wristwatch. Mm-hmm. Okay? We're traveling faster than the speed of light. And I reach down and I turn on so I can read the time on my watch, which is now not reading accurate time anyway because we're now moving faster than the speed of light. But the light on that watch, would I see my watch light up? Or would it move past me? Or is it because we're traveling together that the light on my body would stay with us? I've always wondered about that. What happens to light if we are moving at faster than the speed of light? If we're moving with the speed of light, I can digest that. But if we're moving faster than the speed of light and we've moved past that, what happens to the light around us?
That is an excellent question, because we'd have to conduct an experiment to see if that could even be tested.
And another example is this, and this is, I'll try to explain my thought. Gravity, inertia, right? When we take a right-hand turn in a car and we're moving really, really fast, then inertia kicks in and we hit our head on the window on the car. Okay, I get that. But when you're on an airplane and you're taking off and you feel that first inertia and you're pushed back in your seat, but once you stabilize, then you don't feel that anymore. So would that be the same thing that would happen once you are at the speed of light and then you move beyond it? Then would light stay consistent and stay with you just like gravity would, and you would be able to walk around and not feel the inertia around you? You know,
that's an excellent analogy.
Yes.
And intuitively, I would say that would be the case. because I just don't see that going faster than the speed of light would suddenly put us in darkness, because light is everywhere.
Right. And what happens, the other fundamental question is, what happens if once we, time stops and slows down as you approach the speed of light? What happens to time after you move past the speed of light? What would happen then?
Well, one thought was that we would actually go back in time.
Yes, I understand. But that is only relative to where you start from. In other words, your starting point would be back in time. But what would happen to the watch on your wrist? What happens to that? Would it actually move backwards? Would we watch the hands on your wristwatch turn backwards? And I know it sounds, it sounds like an easy question to answer, but would we actually see stuff move backwards, or is it only relative to your starting point?
No, those are excellent questions. I would think it's relative to your starting point, but I can't say that absolutely.
Yeah.
But whatever would be the case, we would. I still believe we can exceed the speed of light, and that this will be the key to future space exploration, and that other civilizations have already achieved this. Again, anything we can think of, that we can conceive of today, is possible for the future. And again, just as we talked about teleportation of quanta, that's the first step.
Mm-hmm.
So nothing is beyond us, just a matter of time and technology.
I got a doctor. Do you want to hang out for a little bit more, or I know you're a night owl. Do you want to hang out for another segment?
Okay, sure.
Okay, excellent. Let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll continue more, and we will be taking your phone calls. Dr. Franklin Ruehl. This is Fade to Black on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Shoot me an email to jimmy@jimmychurchradio.com. I literally, right now, if I went and counted, I think we have, I'm going to have to send these to you, Doctor. I have 25 emails backed up. So all questions for you. We'll be back right after this.
Why aren't they calling? Why are they using email?
Oh, they will. I'll be back right after this.
Okay.
Despite popular opinion, reading a book will not make you smarter.
But listening to Jimmy Church will. On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
He's always giving it to you straight.
JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Erica, Ricky, Gabby, and you're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Yeah. All right. Fade to Black, Monday edition. Yeah, we've got some audio problems. But, I hope everybody is enjoying the program. We are doing the best that we can. We're getting through it. Okay. Doctor, again, check this out. This is a great question. What would the evolutionary purpose of a humanoid developing a cone-shaped head be?
Well, I just point out that if you look at the wide spectrum of entities we have on our Earth, we have every conceivable shape you can think of, and we even haven't discovered the vast majority. So I'm not sure what the advantage of a cone head would be, but I certainly think it's possible that, because we have a couple of humans. There's a girl that was in Africa who had a cone-headed shape, and there's another girl that currently had her head swell up, and it's not cone-headed, but it's like a huge sphere. So the cone head itself, just when we have so many different, mutations, if there's no problem, the mutation might continue. Now, I don't know if that would help you think better, but I certainly think it's a possibility as long as it wouldn't cause any problem. And perhaps these creatures with cone heads, for example, might have, let's say, evolved in caves, and the caves might have been triangular in terms of entrances, so a cone head might have been easier for them to squeeze through. I'm just speculating on this, but I think that I don't see an immediate advantage to a cone head, but I don't see any problem with it either. And with all the entities we have with different physiologies on our planet, all these morphologies of, let's say, spiders and raccoons and deer and camels, so different, each one of them in their structures, and they all are surviving. So any type of head could keep you going. It wouldn't cause a problem.
Okay, next call coming in. Hi, you are live with Dr. Ruehl on Fade to Black. Who's calling? Where are you calling from?
Hi, this is Kitty. I'm calling from Tucson. Let me take you off speaker here. I'm not sure if this is off topic or not, but what do you think about the WOW signal back in August 1977? What are your thoughts on that?
Great question. Doctor, did you get that?
Not quite, no. What she said?
She said the WOW signal from 19... Yeah. Thank you, Kit.
You bet. I'll take the answer offline.
Okay, you got it. Thank you, Kit.
Yeah, the WOW signal. One message apparently from outer space, and they said WOW, and we never got another one from that. So was it an actual signal from an extraterrestrial civilization or just some sort of aberration? And we just don't know. I have to say we can't prove it was... if there's a steady stream of signals, that would be great, but just one signal, and that was dated back there 37 years ago, I guess. 77, right?
Yeah, 77. Yeah, that's right.
37 years ago, we keep looking for them. That's what SETI keeps doing, looking for another WOW signal. So it's depressing that we just got one. So was it an aberration? Not. We just don't know.
I had Seth Shoshack on the program, and one of the things about that and programs like SETI is, do you think, and I want you to answer from your heart, do you think they would tell us even if they did find it today? I think it was an accident in 77 is what I mean. The exposure of the WOW signal.
I think they should have. They didn't mean to reveal it to the public.
Yeah. Do you think they would?
It depends on the scientist. There's someone involved in that research certainly would be excited about that. And I know Seth Shostak certainly sounds like one who would be.
Right.
But then there might be the overriding rule that we're not to disclose anything of this nature. But someone might decide to go over and expose it anyway and think that the populace deserves to know. So it would depend on the individual. He might fear jeopardizing his career, but feel that the public needs to know the truth. And since there's just that one signal, what can you say? Was it just an aberration? Were there other signals we haven't been told about? That's certainly a possibility also.
Right.
But I just don't know. I think it would depend on the individual. If I were in that position, I certainly would want to tell the world, even if I lost my job. But other people might keep quiet.
Well, just like I said at the beginning of the program tonight, I'm a firm believer of nothing is what it seems, and it seems like with the government and the media's propensity to lie a lot, it's a habit now, that you just don't know what to believe, and we are left to our own devices. We really are. We have to go, question everything, and you've just got to go and find out for yourself. You've got to put everything through a filter, do your own investigation, no matter what it is. And when it comes down to signals from space in any regard, we don't know. We don't know if it's ever happened. We only know what we're told, and that's it. I know it's a hard concept to grasp, and to believe. But honestly, you only know what you are told. Period.
The reason they give the argument is that they want the public to panic, knowing that we've been contacted by an advanced civilization, that this would cause some sort of widespread fear. But there's also the fear that if ETs landed, that we'd start paying attention to their philosophy, especially if these were friendly, intelligent ETs, and perhaps drop our current governments. That could be a fear that our leaders would have, another reason for concealing the truth.
Right.
And I was going to say, I think that perhaps with War of the Worlds in 1939 with Orson Welles, that might have generated a certain degree of panic. But people today have seen so much on television, so much in the movies about ETs, that I don't think the landing of a UFO would panic us. Certainly not to the extent it might back in 1939. And of course, another reason, each government may try to conceal the fact they've made contact or that there's a UFO that's been sighted in their vicinity, because they want to be the first to reach it, to possibly be able to secure advanced technology they can use to their own benefit. So they might want to fool the others, say there's no UFO out there, while they're themselves trying to find it. And it, again, possibly secure the technology, even though it might take 40 years to crack the code of alien technology.
Okay, here's the next question. Just came in. Ask the good doctor, this is from Eugene, ask the good doctor about this cryptozoology sighting of flying humanoids. Do you know what, has there been a sighting that I don't know about?
I think I did hear about one flying humanoids that they may have, I'm skeptical of it. I look at each eye hunted for Bigfoot up in Manitoba. I've looked for other creatures, but I haven't seen any flying humanoids. These could actually be birds that have been mistaken for humanoids.
Apparently it was in Mexico, and I did remember reading about it. But, okay, you actually, one of your coolest videos that stand out for me was the Tyrannosaurus Rex being covered in feathers.
Oh, yes.
Hey, tell me about that really quick, or tell everyone. I've seen the video.
One possibility is that T-Rex and other bipedal predatory dinosaurs were covered with feathers for three possible reasons. Warmth, also as display to attract mates, and also to help them move faster as they themselves might have been pursued by predators. And ultimately, those feathers may have allowed birds to evolve. That flight then followed from that. And that's why I say that T-Rex may have had feathers, and as a result, he may also have had lice. Because if you have feathers, there's a chance you will also develop lice.
Do you think the mythology of dragons, which cross all cultures, it doesn't matter, you know, Asian, South American, Central American, of course, Europe, do you think something might have survived?
Yeah, that's always been my thought, that stimulated the idea, the myth of, so-called myth of the dragons, that some may well have survived beyond the 65 million year period. We have drawings, for instance, there was one in Arizona of a cave which seemed to show various creatures, including something that resembled a T-Rex, certainly a two-legged dinosaur. And we ask, how could that have been created?
Right.
And certainly I'm open to that idea. Obviously, the dinosaurs died out, for the most part, 65 billion years, but some could have found an ecological niche to survive and at least exist till perhaps the last few thousand years.
They look too much alike. You know, it's the exact same depiction that you get with the Mayan culture and like I said, South America, Central America, China, Japan, and all across Europe. There is no question when you see a dragon drawn from an ancient culture, you know exactly what you're looking at. And obviously somebody was seeing something.
Absolutely. And I think it would be more than just having found a dinosaur fossil.
Yes. Okay, we got our last call for the night. Hi, you are live with Dr. Ruehl. Who's calling and where are you calling from?
Hi, I'm Ken, and I'm calling from Detroit, Michigan.
How you doing, Ken? Everything good?
Oh, doing real good. Enjoying your show.
What have you? Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question for Dr. Ruehl. Is he optimistic or pessimistic as far as whether or not our government will ever come forward on the UFO phenomenon?
Great question, Ken, and that's a good way to end out the show. Thank you for calling, and behave out there in Detroit, man.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Thank you, Ken.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So as I just was speaking about SETI, certainly there can be some employees that at some point someone will, reveal the truth, come forth with this. Especially maybe he's worked there, now he's secured information. He's no longer worrying about losing his job, no longer being afraid of being assassinated. Someone perhaps is up in years who has accumulated this information. So while I don't expect the government to come forward, I would expect that we might have some lone individuals who just break the silence and tell us what's the truth about UFOs. I really think so. I would hope that if I was in that position, I would have the courage to do it. And again, this could be someone who even perhaps has a terminal illness, so he figures he has nothing to lose, so he's going to come forth with this.
You think it would be something like that would tip the scales? I've never heard anybody come up with that idea when it comes to disclosure, but that's an interesting take. A total rebel, somebody that it just isn't going to care, and maybe, like you said, maybe a terminal illness or some other mitigating factor.
Absolutely, where he has nothing to worry about and feels that the public deserves to know the truth.
In all of your years, have you ever had anybody come up and whisper in your ear from the government side of the fence saying, you're on track, doctor?
I've never been contacted, as far as I know, by anyone from the government. As I've said with the lecturing at aerospace conferences and dinners, afterwards they'd come up and I'd hand them the official form. They might tell me on the QT they've seen a UFO, but never once has anyone from such a company filled out the form and returned it to me.
What about Men in Black?
Never been approached by them.
Although,
do you know Hayden Hughes? He passed away.
Yes.
Hayden Hughes?
Yes.
And he was a friend of mine, and he said at one time in Vegas he was followed by Men in Black who almost ran him off the road and killed him.
Did he?
As a UFO,
Did he ever describe them to you personally? What did he see?
Actually, he said they were actually men in black, dark clothes. That was about it. He said they tried to drive his car off the road in Vegas.
I got to thank you for coming on the show tonight.
Okay, my pleasure.
And I have to talk to you about maybe doing some stuff with us in the future. We would thoroughly enjoy it, and everybody out there would enjoy hearing from you as often as possible. Again, Dr. Franklin Ruehl, are you doing any speaking? Are you doing anything coming up in the near future?
Not right now. I'm trying to get some things going. Keep trying to get a regular segment on the news programs, the daily talk shows, and I'm not getting any positive response.
Doctor, when you talk about the things that you talk about, you and I and people like us, we are the minority. And it's us trying to convince the other 99.9% of the world out there that there's something else to think about.
I don't think it's quite 99.9%, say more like 95%.
You're right. So, sir, you've been rolling that rock uphill, and we've been behind you the entire time. And so, trust us, we hear you.
Okay, Jimmy, until next time, may the power of the cosmos be with you. Yes, yes, yes.
Doctor, it's an honor. Thank you so much.
Good night.
Good night.
Dr. Franklin Ruehl. Now my audio is back, and it is correct. Dr. Franklin Ruehl, Fade to Black on Monday. And what a way to kick it off. And just so everybody understands, the doctor is up there in years, and his signal is very low. I'm fighting it on this end, and when I've got everything cranked up, it changes the impedance on the console, and and interfaces and everything else, and that's why I sound different. And so I'm not making any excuses. I did everything I could to make sure that you could hear every word that the doctor had to say tonight. And I like I said, all of you got a bona fide treat. I don't think he has ever gone on a program like this for this long and hung tough. And he actually said to me the other night, he said, Jimmy, does your show go past midnight? Because I usually stay up till 3 a.m. So if you need me, I'm there for the duration. I was like, Doctor, you rock, man. You absolutely rock. So with that, let me indulge. Let me take a little break, and I'll come back and we'll wrap this show up. Thank you, everybody. I'll be back right after this. This is Fade to Black, only on the Dark Matter Radio Network. Keep the tweets coming. I'm watching. Don't think that I'm not. I see it. Everybody's thanking Dr. Ruehl. Was that cool or what? At JChurch Radio. That's the Twitter. Hashtag DMRadioNet. Kit, Ken, Dino, Rick. Thank you, everybody. Anyway, I'll be back right after this. Stay with us.
This is KJCR at JimmyChurchRadio.com.
On the Dark Matter Radio Network.
Hey, this is Alan Yohannes from the Vultures and Queens of the Stone Age. You're listening to JimmyChurchRadio.com. Rock on.
Doug Aldrich, Dizzy Reed, Chris Frazier, Ian on bass. Oh, I love it when we get to this point of the show every night and I get to listen to that track. A couple of things. This email just came in, and then I have an actual announcement to make. So everybody just hang out for a second. But it's this. This came in from Demian, and he says, talking about light when you're traveling faster than the speed of light, he says, it seems to me that it would glow, but no light would be able to go forward or emit because the watch is on you. Its source point would be traveling at your speed. Yes, that logically, that's what I'm thinking. But then wouldn't we, because we're moving faster than the speed of light. Well, I suppose, since it's traveling with you. Man, where's Michio Kaku when you need him? I'm serious. All right, check this out. Check this out. We have a donation of a pass to Contact in the Desert. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to give this away. And this comes from Brad Binding, and it's been donated from Brad. Okay, so we can all thank Brad. I want everybody to light up Twitter right now and say thank you, Brad. So he's donated it to the cause. It's one pass, not two. It's one pass. So tomorrow, I'll make the announcement. If you can indeed make it to Contact in the Desert, and you can arrange lodging and everything else, and you can actually go, then tomorrow it'll be first come, first serve. All right? I'll make the announcement tomorrow, and then everybody can race and battle for that pass. But if you get that pass and we give it to you, you better be at Contact in the Desert because there's a lot of people that want to go. It's a $400 4-day pass to Contact in the Desert. You can thank Brad for that. Thank you, Brad. Tomorrow, we will announce it, and then I'm going to figure out a way. I don't know how. I don't know how we're going to do it. Email, Twitter, phone call. But I will hunt you down for the rest of your life if you get that pass and don't show up. I swear. It will be ugly. Okay? So, we have one pass. Think about that. If you can actually make it and come and hang out with us, we have some really cool things planned out there that we haven't talked about on the air. So you're going to want to come out and hang out with us. All right? Contact in the Desert. We have one, not two, one. And if you can make it and you want to come with your significant other, well, then, buy another pass. But if you can make it, I need you to think about that. This is a wide-reaching show. If you live in California, if you live in Palm Springs, you live in L.A., Las Vegas is close. 29 Palms, Riverside, Ontario, San Diego. If you are close and you can make it, then tomorrow I will figure out a really creative way. So get ready. And if you want to go, I will think of something really creative tomorrow to figure out who is deserving. Okay? All right? We are going to have a great time. And for everybody, I need you to remember, we're going to Contact in the Desert a week from this Friday. It is now here. I was speaking to everybody at Contact over the weekend. You have no idea how many people are going to be attending this. It's out of control. And I think it's fair and safe to say that Contact in the Desert has now officially turned into the event of the entire year. Out of everything that is going on, this is the one thing that you want to do. Stay tuned. Coming up next, Expanded Perspectives, followed by The Unexplained with Howard Hughes. What? Howard Hughes? Howard Hughes is back. No, it's from England. It's a great show, by the way. Special thanks to Keith Rowland and Art Bell. Fade to Black's executive producers, Rita Kamurian. Shows produced by Hilton J. Palm and Mark D. Kovar. Announcers are Steve Harder and Mark D. Kovar. Music is Doug Aldrich. Show intro performed by Space Boy. Fade to Black is produced by KJCR for the Dark Matter Radio Network. I'm your host, Jimmy Church. I will see everybody tomorrow night with Dr. Barry Taft right here on Fade to Black. Bespoke radio for the masses. Good night, everybody. Be safe. See ya.